Ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited for today's interview with a very unique guest, where we very synchronistically met last week, where this interview was going to be about raw foods. However, as I did more research about him, turns out he's way more than just a chef. Micah Skye, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm very excited to unpack all the content that we're going to be talking about today.
Awesome.
So first of all, let's set the tone for the interview in terms of what we're going to be talking about, so you guys can be aware of the contents of this episode. Firstly, we're going to talk about his background, and then NeuroMuscular Release Therapy and the viral documentary that he made, which is also going to be in the description below, and the pandemic in Big Pharma, spirituality, society and humanity, and last but not least, raw foods and the kitchen or restaurant where we met. Micah, floor is all yours.
Wow. Well, it's an honor to be here and an honor to talk about things that I feel should be talked about, and to dive into. And I'm excited that you felt an interest and desire to not only explore all this, but an acknowledgement of the hard work that's gone into what I've been trying to do for the last couple decades, which is share knowledge and wisdom about a lot of the stuff that's been kept from humanity that empowers us and activates us and heals us, which seems to be a theme that we'll get into at some point, that they don't want us to be empowered, activated, and healed. So yeah, so it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to unfolding all the stages and layers as you want to get into it, and I'm excited to start activating a release of information as you invoke it through your questions and whatnot. So,
all right, so let's start off from the very beginning, the first layer. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and where you were born, how you got into all this knowledge and wisdom that you've tapped into? Yeah,
well, I was born in Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I was born into the last dying remnants of the baby boomer hippie culture generation. I was definitely technically a hippie kid. My parents were artists, and
what kind of art?
My father was an art lighting master, actually. So he was an artist of all trades, but he found that art lighting was practical because it had a purpose. So he thought, how can I sell art? Well, if it's also a lamp, people need lights in their house, so that's where he found his niche, was in art lighting, both in restoring like Tiffany's and Handel's. These, there was a period of time through the early 1900s and into probably mid 1950s before real industrialization started to happen with manufacturing, and stuff just got made cheaper and crappier. Where you had these companies that were art lighting companies, and so they would make 50 of one art light that you'd have one of 50, and it would be considered a piece of art, so it was collectible. And so Tiffany was one of the companies for that. Handel was another company, and so I grew up with these beautiful stained glass magical lights all around me.
Tiffany, the jewelry company.
Tiffany, the jewelry company, used to originally be like, one of their focuses was art lighting, and so I believe it's the same company. Yeah, Tiffany, and so Tiffany lamps, even to this day, are some of the most expensive and collectible lights if they're original Tiffany lamps. And that was just one of the companies. Handel was another one, and so my father prior to that was an antique collector as well, and he also was into restoring things. He actually at 16 got an apprenticeship at the Henry Ford Museum, which is a very magical restorative historical foundation that he was immersed deeply into, vintage automobiles, which is one of his favorite things. So growing up, my father had a fleet of around 17 or 18 vintage cars that we, and I would watch him restore these cars from like a rusted nothing into this beautiful, what looked like a brand new 34 Ford pickup or 37 Lafayette Coupe, or, you know.
I'm sure that inspired you to see transformations from what it used to be to what it becomes, and that how that imprints on your view of life in general.
It
and
did,
the work
yeah.
that you do.
Yes, actually, beautifully. Not only, you know, did I see this beautiful aspect of transformation, but on the art lighting side, you know, my father was into, you know, electricity, and so ironically, the neuromuscular work I do deals with electricity.
That's something we want to dive deep into.
Yeah, yeah,
We'll get to that.
and there's a funny story when we were kids. We'll touch base on at some point. But the aspect of transformation, the aspect of, you know, my father ran his own business, so, you know, he has a octangular art studio, so it looks like a giant octagon with a vaulted ceiling that goes up to what's called a cupola. It's a tiny room with a little finial piece. It looked like a giant spaceship. And it had a spiral staircase that went up the center, and from the central part of the building was his office, and then around the entire thing was his work studio, his art studio. So
unique in every detail.
Totally, he built it himself and was just outside from the house I grew up in. So, you know, for me growing up, my father was just right outside in his art studio. So I grew up with my father being around. He would come in for lunch, and so I was very blessed to have my father around a good portion of the time, where many kids didn't have that. And so I've been very blessed through my practices and through my crafts to be able to also be in my children's lives a lot more, and owning my own businesses and running my own practices. It's given me a lot more, it's given me the ability to give my children the gift that I had, which was a more present father in their lives. And
your father showed you that it was possible.
And there is a brave thing with running your own business and being not working for somebody else, and
affects your entire personality.
And it's scary at first, you know. I definitely remember the transition where I went from working in other practices and clinics and spas, even when I was just doing massage therapy, to moving into my own practices. And, you know, there's no paycheck. You have to create your own way, and there's a freedom to it, but there's also
risk,
a powerful risk in sovereignty. And now looking back, the concept for working for somebody is just so foreign to me, because I've built such a confidence and a grounding in the sovereignty of what it is to be your own, you know, your own boss, you know.
And through providing value mainly.
And also, yes, in building faith in God, in the Creator, that everything
That's also
comes,
something we want to dive into.
Yeah, that everything comes to you through the Creator anyways, and so trust and faith becomes a big thing. And, you know, my dad always used to tell me how many times that they weren't sure how they were going to pay everything every month, and then everything always kind of worked out, always. And I remember that sticking with me as a kid, and in my own trials and tribulations of that, did that you know, statement come through to me to just do the same thing. And so
it's not just scripture or words, it's actually integrated through real life experience.
Yeah, it's experiential, and you can't have that experience unless you break from the system and you actually experience it for yourself, and you go into that vulnerability and that fragility and the void of, how's this going to work out, you know, and I'm going to, you know, give it to God and like trust and surrender. And it's blossomed beautifully, actually, almost gone beyond what I could have imagined, to where
that's the beauty of trusting a higher power.
Oh my gosh.
The system gives you a set track of what to expect.
Yes.
When you surrender, you really don't know what to expect, and what happens through the long run when you surrender for a longer period of time. Things
it's beautiful.
Unfold very beautifully and magically.
And it also kind of cracks the matrix fear psychology that they want you to have.
Get a degree, get a job, get the insurance, get this.
Stay in our system. If you go outside of our system, you're going to be all alone, and like everything will fall apart, and you need our security, you need our safety.
A big part of it is validation too, because that entire system is built off of the individual's collective validation.
It's very true.
I validate it, you validate it, and just like money. Money is a form of exchange that you and I have agreed that this is valuable.
Exactly.
But many people don't think about that because they were born into it, and they just accept what mom and dad said and how everything is, and they don't take a moment to really just look at what they're doing, why they're doing it,
right,
and how are we in the place that we are today.
That's it.
Yeah.
And
but let's get back to you.
Yeah.
And you talked about your dad. Would you like to speak about your mom, or would you like to get into
Yeah, I mean, my
education
mom,
first?
well, my mom raised me in kind of a spectrum of trying to play out the programming and indoctrination of like Catholicism, which she was raised in, even though she had her own issues with it, but feeling this obligation
What
to
was your
take
dad?
us to...
Was your dad religious, or you said hippies?
My dad comes from more of like the Hungarian gypsy Jewish side. So I had like but they became non-denominational upon coming to America. They kind of
To integrate, or because they found another
I would
way?
say both, you know. I mean, just the fact that they changed their name from Josephowitz to Jefferson shows you that they had a transition to get into this country. At the time, it was hard to get a job as a Jew back in the day. And
in America.
In America. And so, but ironically, my grandfather became a principal in Dearborn. And
Did he tell the people that he was Christian, or did he stay with?
I don't know how he worked his way into it, but I will tell you that he actually ended up working in the government, and there's some very strange mystery around that. When he passed away, the government came and cleared out his office. Both my grandfathers, I guess, were working in higher level operations. With
Grandfathers, not your father.
No, grandfathers. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what he had. A lot of there's a
What
lot
is your
of
family name?
mystery about it. What's that?
Micah Skye, is that
Skye
your first and
was
middle?
my acting and DJ name when I was in Hollywood for 10 years. And
Did you work in Hollywood?
I did.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, as an actor and screenwriter for
Nice.
about 10
you
years.
fit the criteria.
I thought it was what I was going to do. I thought it was, and I really wanted to create screenplays and films that had deeper spiritual teachings that were covered with action and a lot of the stuff that people are drawn into, but sliding in deeper spiritual teachings in
like
them.
The Matrix and Free Guy and
Totally,
movies along
totally,
that line.
yeah. And I mean, and you know, I was really invoked by the art of cinema, and I loved it. And I actually had sold my first screenplay and had it optioned when I had a big spiritual awakening that woke me up and redirected my purpose. And then I kind of walked away from it all. And you know,
When did that happen?
it was around
what age were you?
2005, 2006. Yeah, I had
What
just.
stimulated that?
It's a trippy story.
All right, let's take things
to dive into it.
Let's take things in sequence.
Yeah.
We're talking about your mom. She was trying to teach you more about
So
Catholicism.
I was raised in both the obligation we should go to church on Sundays, and then also my mom had broken from Catholicism into the Eastern sciences through the wave of kind of New Age and Eastern religion that came through more Yogananda. I was actually raised in Kriya Yoga and Paramahansa Yogananda, who through the fall of the guru that's happened in the last so many years.
What do you mean the fall of the guru?
Well, there's been a big exposure of the false guru and a lot of the corruption. Cults, but also just the corruption, really, of Western society corrupting Eastern religion that's come over here, and Eastern teachers that have gotten infected with the Western society. And sexuality, power, all of this stuff. So, but ironically and beautifully, Paramahansa Yogananda really has stayed free of all of that, because he was always very in integrity and very pure in his practices and his intentions and motives and truth. So it was beautiful to be raised in the Kriya sciences, and I was always taught, you know, meditation, and she was always telling me to do these practices, but I didn't witness her doing them consistently. And I get it. It's hard to keep your practices when you have kids. I have 4 now, and it's the greatest test. In fact, even in India, you know, it's really easy to just escape into a cave and do yogic practices and breathwork. But the new challenge, even in the Hindu culture, is can you keep your practices and have a family? That's a lot harder.
Maintaining responsibility.
And service to others, as well as service to oneself and your higher being. So, so at 18, I moved to Los Angeles. I had a apprenticeship with.
Where'd you grow up, in Michigan? Stayed in Michigan.
Ann Arbor, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or just outside of Ann Arbor. A place called Pleasant Lake, which is sadly, I was just outside of the education line to go to the Ann Arbor schools, which would have been a better program, I feel. But then also in its own blessings, I went to a very small German farm towns high school with 90 kids in my class. And the whole focus was about the football team getting to the state championships. And it was
It was more community.
there were gifts and challenges with it. It was kind of beautiful to know all these kids that you grew up with since you were kindergarten, and but it was also a little limiting in the social expansion and dynamic of knowing these kids. Everyone knew everyone. It was very so I didn't really have like a relationship, I would say, through high school that was significant until I had some German exchange students come, because strangely we were a small German farm town in Michigan, like many. And we had a German exchange program, and I had some German exchange students come and stay with us, and they were a breath of like another psychology outside of the Western dynamic of
The way they
teenagers.
treat each other.
Oh my gosh, how they treat each other, their authenticity,
clarity and respect. Because I did live in
and
Germany.
fun and excitement and like it was so beautiful to see. And honestly, these kids took over my high school. Like they became the coolest kids. Why? Because they exuded all of these authentic qualities that most of us were corroded by television and social engineering
programming
to be really narcissistic and shitty and all the things that now have accelerated with the technological advancements,
social
right?
media.
Because we didn't have iPhones then, but we had Beverly Hills 90210 and all the other crap that there was that was setting the platform for that. And these kids just became a revelation, I'd say, for the school. It was really, really beautiful to see, and I got to like have my first real introduction to the feminine as I met like a love interest that was authentic. It wasn't, there was no games. It was like, I feel a connection. Would you like to explore this? Yes. And I was like, oh, I knew it was that simple. I knew it wasn't so complicated.
That's how she came about it.
Yes, it was just so pure and direct and present and true, and there were no games and manipulation and cattiness or gossipiness or any of the stuff that I was seeing starting to cultivate in our species that's gotten way worse now. With the, really we'll just say the polarization, the depolarization of masculine and feminine that's come about, where we have the emasculation of men and the feminization of men, and then the masculinization of women through the neo-feminist movement. And I'm just going to keep it real. That's what it is. And when you look at the founders of feminism and now neo-feminism, literally they set an intention to bring about the collapse of the patriarchy through destroying family values in America, and that's what I've bared witness to. And
they're demonizing the patriarchy by painting it in a very bad light.
100%. Yes.
Elaborate on that.
I can do it so much.
Because a lot of people have this label, down with the patriarchy. This is their
100%.
theme, always against patriarchy. But ask them to define what patriarchy is, they usually stumble, or they say something that we're not on the same page with.
100%.
We can agree with what you're saying, but you're mislabeling it.
Well, and it's also warped. Like, I would consider myself a traditional feminist, but that's not what we have today. We have neo-feminism, which is different. So
What is a traditional feminist?
A traditional feminist was equality for men and women against the hierarchy of these patriarchal forces, or really globalist control and manipulation. It was about equal rights for men and women, where neo-feminism is really about suppressing and squashing and oppressing the masculine and really
making him look like a subjugated fool while the woman takes lead.
And the feminine is looked at almost as a higher, more superior vessel, which is ironic because, let's face it, like, this entire society, as much as you want to complain about it, has been completely built by men.
Exactly.
In
the
fact,
bridges,
all
the roads,
the infrastructure,
the
everything would not run or function without men doing it. In fact, if the society collapsed, it would become very clear once again the importance of both roles and the significance of a man and what would be called masculinity. And then you have things like a couple of these pseudo-psychologists who coined the term toxic masculinity, which was originally done because they were doing a study in jails, and they found that there was a specific character characteristic in jails that with men that were prone to like start fights and violence and shank each other and like stab each other and stuff. And so they coined this term toxic masculinity in a study for a jail that had nothing, and then somehow it seeped into mainstream psychology, and you get this phrase, toxic masculinity, which the reality is there are toxic masculine and feminine individuals. There's toxic masculinity, there's toxic femininity, and I think a lot of that has on the backside of this #2 BS that surged. You have gotten to see a lot more exposure of toxic femininity, and some of that came with this public case with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and you got to that set a temperament and a tone for toxic femininity that we can be exposed. Like we can't just get away with it.
Because all of that stuff has been happening very discreetly, or men just didn't have that big of a platform.
And the statistics are insane for it. And I'll give you an example. One that I just learned the other day is the highest percentage, the highest statistic for domestic abuse is lesbian relationships.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that. I just saw a reel about that maybe 2 days.
I mean, and the lowest is actually in homosexual gay marriages. So, you know, I mean, let's take a look at that, folks. Like, in fact, you know, I myself was in sadly a 7-year relationship where there was a lot of violence and what's called there's the abbreviation for it. It's interpersonal violence, IPV. I think it's a form of violence in relationships. In fact, the statistics are much higher than they record for violence in relationships towards men. It's just men usually will not report it because it's a pride thing. It's still a loyalty and protection thing to the individual.
And women are aware of that. They use it against you.
They do indeed.
They're I learned a lot about even conspiracies and also manipulation through my observations of how women function between themselves and also in relationships with other men. And also in my own relationship. I've been through a lot of relationships. And after each one, I'd have a new realization of a certain depth and level of communication and extremely subtle manipulation. And that helps you understand how the 100%. Government also works. And then the more I actually dove into reading scripture and the Bible, I actually saw that this is not a new thing. I mean, if you just read Proverbs alone, which is written by King Solomon, and it's written for men, it's written for future kings, there is so much about toxic femininity and the Jezebel spirit and the fallen queen, and be careful who you partner with because she can either build your kingdom up or tear it down. And like this is ancient. This is an old thing. It's nothing new. I mean, one of the most powerful ones is it's better to be alone in the wilderness than to have a defiant woman in your home. And I was like, whoa. And that's because that is in Proverbs.
And throughout I kept seeing like these warning signs for, I was like, God, I read this when I was like 16 years old. Because I just would have liked to have had a broader perspective on this, because I very much was raised by a liberal feminist mother.
So she wasn't very Catholically religious.
Yeah, I mean, it long had broken from that, but was trying to force the obligation that we should go to church and stuff out of obligation. It wasn't out of teaching me the deeper truths of Christ and or anything of that nature. It was more following suit to the tradition and whatever obligation. And some kind of like feeling of like guilt, like we should do this or something, So I learned a lot more from the Eastern sciences in terms of connection with source and spirit and communicating with God. And Yogananda was really beautiful in how he communicated his meditating on your love with God and your relationship, and like there was a real beautiful thing that personalized my relationship with God always, no matter what I went through, if it was like the Eastern sciences and the yogic journey, and then eventually coming to the path of what we called the path of the way, which is actually the true teachings of Christ without any religion or anything in that regard. And that was originally what people were called who followed Christ, was followers of the way. And really Christ was the largest rebel to stand against organized religion, and so people government and corruption, and so unfortunately, and I do see this as one of the larger infections, is that organized religion has has really stigmatized and distorted Christ to be associated with them and their corruption that people don't resonate with. I didn't resonate. I was in church going, Jesus Christ, the only Son of God. And I was like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely a child of God. Like that just was.
It turned into paganism because the Roman Empire, instead of collapsing, it integrated the new and upcoming
through
movement.
Constantine and the whole distortion. They were like, all right, we have to control and manipulate this. We got to get this under wraps. Okay, so they're going to keep pushing this. All right, well, let's mutate and distort it. Let's remove a bunch of books from the Bible. That's why if you read the Bible and you get the what is it called? I want to say apothecary, but that's not it. It's the apothera.
What's the meaning of it? Maybe then I can.
It's the extra books that are involved in the Bible, basically. There's another like 30 plus books. I have one right in here,
Just like the one that talked about the giants, I forgot the name.
Book of Enoch.
Book of Enoch, yes.
Yeah.
And many others that have been always...
So
the Vatican, for example, why do they have such a huge secret library that the public has no access to? What are they hiding?
Which has supposedly been seized, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of that, actually.
The entire library?
They took a lot of those books already and they've extracted them. A lot of this stuff is part of the age of disclosure that we're in, but the masses are so conditioned to a collective distortion and the manipulated narrative they're programmed to that the disclosure has to be gradual. You can't really just drop it all out there. And that's one thing I learned as I dove deeper into like running an intelligence channel, which picked up around the pandemic. And I started funneling 17 intel channels into one, and I started to just see so much information that started to flood through that I was like, I tried to introduce a lot of it to people that were too deeply in the cognitive dissonance, and that's what cognitive dissonance is. You could show someone the most direct proof and they're going to say, oh, that's not real, because they're so identified. It threatens their entire existence. So that really showed me how deeply we are in a spiritual war of the mind, and how deeply the matrix has been constructed around us. And a big part of why our mind is also so locked up is our bodies being locked up, So, but that was the Apocrypha, by the way. I just wanted for people to, you can find versions of the Bible that has the Apocrypha, and it's powerful. There are so many books, and it's curious, why did they edit these ones out? And of course, there's just a lot of things that are very interesting. Like King James actually wrote the Book of Demonology as well, and also was not.
But I don't find that to be a bad thing.
No, not necessarily.
Because you also need to understand evil so that you can.
100%.
There's this analogy from Carl Jung where he says a tree that can grow to heaven must first have its roots all the way down to hell. So you need to understand evil, so when it's coming towards you, you can first of all identify it and then manage your way around it
100%.
And transmute it back into light.
100%, and it gives a context to know your enemy, so to speak.
Exactly.
But at the same time, no matter what version, and this is what got really fascinating for me that I noticed with the Bible, is when you line up the translations, and the Bible was originally even written in Aramaic and then Hebrew, and also in Ethiopian as well. Like they all line up. From these different scholars from different places, spoke different languages, they line up meticulously with each other, which is one of many strange facts about it that I didn't know. Like there are 2,500 prophecies in the Bible, and over 2,000 of them have come true from Old Testament to New Testament.
There's the most recent one with the Mark of the Beast that's happening.
And then you have 500 remaining that are in the New Testament for right now, and many of them are coming true from the Euphrates River draining up, which is unheard of and super weird.
Antichrist.
Yeah, the Million Man Army as well, which has never existed in human history and now exists. And like there's just from a mathematical perspective, I even heard a really fascinating one from like a scientist who mathematically analyzed the Bible and its significance along with the existence of Christ, and he said that mathematically, it's more likely that the planet would reverse in its geothermal dynamics than the fact that this Bible, this written book, and Christ's existence and resurrection was false in some way. In fact, there's more historical evidence for the existence of Christ than there is Alexander the Great, who's somebody that we acknowledge in history and the colleges and things. So,
but people nowadays, they always want to associate Jesus with Christ energy and not an actual man.
Right.
Which both of them can be valid.
I was going to say
100% believe that the fact that Jesus was a real man. He was not just an archetype.
There is a New Age movement that he was just an allegorical metaphor. Yeah.
There are allegories in the Bible that speak about astronomy and whatnot, but that does not apply on everything.
It's coated with them. In fact, and at the same time, he very much was speaking about, the title of Christed or Christos is something that all of us have the ability to do. And this is
raising your kundalini. Exactly.
And so as I came through the Kriya initiation and
the what?
Kriya initiation through Kriya Yoga, it's like a training that you do at 18 through the Kriya Yogic system.
Is that with Yogananda?
And it comes with like an entire package, and you follow through with these meditations and breath work, and you learn these exercises, and then you do your what's called Kriya initiation. So from there, I started to dive deep into the yogic sciences. I was raised on his book, Autobiography of a Yogi, which was a magical look into the Hindu culture, and that, they had these like Jedi, like men in their society that had miraculous feats that were unexplained, and they were respected by the political infrastructure and the state infrastructure and the police.
It was stuff like that opened my eye from organized religion, because like my parents and majority of society in general, they would say that only the prophets can perform miracles.
Sure.
And I was personally, throughout my entire childhood and early adulthood, I always believed that the only miracle was the Quran and the rest of the revelations.
Right.
And then as I traveled the world and had my own personal experiences in Germany and saw synchronicities happen in my life, I'm like, this wasn't me, nor my dad, nor his money, nor politics or connections. This was straight up divine design.
Yeah.
That's when I started to realize, no, actually, miracles are happening all around us every day if we simply surrender enough to observe them and realize them. Even your body just functioning by itself, that in itself is a miracle.
Oh, it's a profound miracle, and the more we learn about it, the more miraculous it is, which is why they don't want us to know a lot about our bodies. And so as I went through this Kriya initiation, I had kind of put the call out, when will I find my first teacher? And beautifully, about a year after that, I was...
What do you mean first teacher? Was Yogananda the teacher? Or you mean more direct?
Like a more, like the...
Your mentor?
Yeah, like a yogi, a guru, which throughout the cultural upbringing I had, even just... being raised in, because my mom is a devotee of Amachi, the hugging saint, and so I don't know what that is. She's the woman known as Ma, Divine Mother.
Mary?
No, she's actually this Indian woman who was prophesied to be born in this little village in India, and she has gotten to be known internationally through diplomatic affairs, meeting like high-level politicians.
This was recent, like
over the last probably 30 years. Her name is Amachi, and so she's known as the hugging saint. So my mom was following her and has been for like 27 years. So we were being dragged to this. Still now, she was just in her temple in India recently, and so she's built a lot of foundations. Orphanages, hospitals for children. She's a beautiful embodiment of love and the Divine Mother. And but I was raised being dragged to these as a kid, where all the people would sit around and wait to be able to just hug her. So she would give you, that's it. You get a hug from her,
of the hug.
And then this is what I learned from it over the years was, everyone waits around to get what's called darshan, where they get a hug from her. Darshan.
That's like the name of her energy?
It's like the name of the ceremony, the process of getting a hug from her. And then they're all blissed out. They feel this heightened love, energy, and then they all kind of hang out with each other and pray and sing. Yes. So that's kind of the thing that they do, is they do this thing where all these people, and I'm talking, you get your number and you wait a long time to stand in line and be able to hug her, and she, gives you a hug, and then you are on your way, and then you're all blissed out and everyone hangs out. Do you pay for this? You don't necessarily pay for it, but there's vendors and things, and beautiful vendors with like incense and magical stuff, and that used to be one of my favorite parts, is going to the little market around there, and there's food and things like that.
The reason I ask about money, because that's usually when you can sort of pick. I haven't done any research on this, so
don't get me wrong, they generate a lot of income through their foundation just from the stuff they sell and stuff like that.
Because I've done a lot of research.
You don't have to pay specifically a fee to come there and get darshan and get a hug. that I know of anyways. It never used to be.
Okay.
But they sell food and things like that. And again, most of that stuff is all going to her foundations, which build these orphanages and hospitals in India and stuff like that. And I would say, again, with the fall of the guru and the corruption that you see in a lot of these things, they haven't come under fire. You know what I mean? Through the process, which is where you're really starting to see who's getting exposed that's corrupt and who's
filtering them out.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what's his name? The main guy that was
a lot of them. The guy that was doing this hot yoga.
Yes,
a lot of them always turn into sexuality.
The hot yoga guy, who was just.
That's why I'm very skeptical about healers in general. Yeah, and that's why I did a lot of research before having this interview, because I usually see a lot of frauds.
Yeah, of course.
And they like to play around on people's insecurities, number one.
Yeah.
And people's lack of awareness and knowledge, and also their vulnerability and their own personal mastery of psychology. They know how to manipulate people and make them think.
They don't realize that they've actually deceived themselves too. Yes, in the fall of the guru. And the egoic narcissism propagated from the West, and the deception and the fall of that deception. And that came across the board through so many different teachers, including, like I said, 3HO and Yogi Bhajan, which I was my second stage of really diving into the sciences and arts of Kundalini. I was blessed, like I said, to have a more one-on-one guru-disciple relationship with a little South Indian man that looked like a cross between Gandhi and Yoda.
How'd you find him?
He found me. I mean, in a sense, God, the divine led me to him through a dear brother of mine, and we ended up being like his two sons, kind of. And he was like the good student, and I was kind of the rebellious Hollywood student, actor student who would come out. And
so you got into Hollywood when you were a teenager?
I went out at 18, for a special effects apprenticeship on a TV show, and it just threw me into it. And then that show didn't work out, and then I stayed out there and got signed to a manager and then an agent, and then was originally first thrown into the acting and modeling, and then I quickly wanted to move into screenwriting because I just saw the lack of content in so many of the scripts I was reading. So
you wanted to integrate what you've learned through your upbringing.
I naturally wanted to start writing dialogue and stories, and I grew up with a father who used to make stories up to get us to go to sleep at night. So he would come up with Spider-Man versus the lizard people of Actos, and he would just whip that shit out of out of his nothing. It'd be a crazy elaborate story. So I was really raised with storytelling, and shooting from the cuff and improving, and then also, like I said, being raised in also getting massaged at night before I go to sleep. My mom would incorporate touch, so those were kind of two beautiful pathways that kind of intertwined with each other through that time as I got into the film industry. And then needed something more tangible to be doing. I then got into the Touch Therapy Institute and started my first certifications for different forms of body work. And that was kind of a more practical craft that I could be satiating my parents, feeling like I was doing something practical while pursuing the film industry, which just seemed completely out there to them and unrealistic that I was going to accomplish anything with that made them feel.
So they wanted you to have something more solid.
More tangible, that felt like it was something that I could actually have like a career and a path from. So.
And how did the relationship go with, just circling back to the mentor that you had? How did that develop, and what did you guys do?
Well, it would be beautiful. I mean, because, at 16, I'm going to drop back even before I went to Hollywood. I thought I was going to be a chef because I got...
Oh, so you wanted to be a chef from early on?
I always loved food and always loved making food, but it wasn't until I got a job at a place called the Gandhi Dancer, which was like a gourmet restaurant that was in an old train station. And I got taken on as just a sous chef. And then from that place, I really fell in love with the aspect of cooking and the gourmet side of it. But then I actually got kind of scouted from a place called the Common Grill by another chef, and then was brought into a different gourmet restaurant that was full service, next level for me, thrown into the fire, quite literally, to start as a sous chef and then move up onto the line and be a line chef, and in a gourmet restaurant that was doing like 150, sometimes 200 covers a night.
So did that help with your cooking the food for the mentor as a form of exchange?
Well, no, actually, the interesting thing was I actually was rocking it and thought, this is what I'm going to do. I love this so much. I love the inner workings of the kitchen. I love witnessing the head chef and what he had beautifully built there. And one night I grabbed a pan of hot oil off the line and went to throw it in the dish tank, and all that hot oil just slid up onto my arm and melted all the skin off my arm.
Oh.
So I actually literally got burnt from traditional cooking, traditional chefing. So yeah, that was a really intense journey to go through, because burns are unique. They they don't just go away. You can't just bandage
your
them
hand
up.
looks pretty
Yeah,
healthy.
this arm.
I wouldn't have known if you didn't tell me.
No, I was very blessed in the way that it healed, and but I had to wear a bandage for about 3 months, changing these putting cream on these sores and the skin that had melted off and raw tissue, and it was a journey. So it threw my head for a loop, and that was at 16, before I then went out for this apprenticeship in Los Angeles and got plugged deeper into the film industry, which is the other thing I was really drawn to. So while I was in LA, I was keeping my independent study going with chefing and the art of gourmet cuisine, and of course LA has access to just so many beautiful aspects of cultures of food and the art of cuisine and great chefs, and so when I decided through my yogic teacher to go on the vegan path, which he was very much about not just being a vegan, but also he was a biochemical nutritionist and a raw food enthusiast. And so
Your mentor.
yes, so my
What was his name, if you don't mind me asking?
Sultan.
Sultan.
Yeah, and he goes now by, and he was actually raised Muslim before he came into the practices of Kundalini and Hinduism and Buddhism.
And then what happened? Did he not become a Muslim anymore, or?
Yeah, no, he
They're
was
all
just
very intertwined.
He was raised as, and then went deep more into the other side of his culture, which was the Hindu culture, and then into the yogic sciences, and into the he was a very he was a purist. So he, like I said, he discovered the ancient teachings of the rishis for Kundalini because he went through all the systems, and he cut through all of them. And he was a brilliant scholar, and hyper intellectual.
So the rishis were the ones that
They were the grand wizards of the yogic sciences that then bestowed these teachings onto, the Sikhs, and then the various lineages of yogis that passed it down in both the Hindu culture and the Sikh culture. So, but then you have this body of.
So he was more subscribed to the rishis now and the Sikh.
Yeah, there was because there's a tree of the yogic sciences, and really they started fractaling off into these different teachers that would take one arm, like Ashtanga yoga is just like this one version of doing these same Hatha yoga poses, but it's very aggressive and very fast. It's not I personally don't resonate with it. But you have Hatha yoga, you have Bhakti yoga. You have all of these. You have Shraddha yoga, which is like your day-to-day service. So there's all these branches to what the yogic sciences are, and they started to kind of fractal off. Now, Raja yoga or Kundalini yoga is known as like the highest form. It's basically like Kundalini yoga is all of the poses for Hatha yoga and the other forms of yoga, just with more advanced breath work. So it's really about the breath work. Most of the time, if you're doing Hatha yoga, you're going to be doing what's called the Ujjayi breath, which is through the nose to the throat, and you're just doing this consistent breath while you're doing the poses. Whereas in the yogic sciences for Kundalini, you're doing what's called Parabhati and pranayama, which are two different forms of forced inhalations and exhalations. One is a forced exhale that's kind of like recreating a sneeze.
Oh yeah.
So there's a forced exhale, but a relaxed inhale. You almost can't hear the inhale, right? Where pranayama is a forced inhale, exhale. So they both have different purposes. The Parabati has a form of expulsion. It's a way of expelling crap out of your lungs, where pranayama is more of building energy and cultivating. And so there's more of a detailed nuance that I found to Kundalini that to me was the most, why I got into it was the most pungent, most powerful, and most advanced. And it also, in its true nature, facilitated by the Sikhs, didn't have a lot of the theological dynamics of all of the gods and all of the, that aspect. It's very clear and pure in what it's focusing on, which to me is more about the Christos method, which we talked about, which is moving this bioelectric charge up your spine and activating through the breath and also the cerebral spinal fluid, pressurizing them in synthesis, which activates the pineal and pituitary gland to release two sacred secretions known in the Bible as the milk and the honey, which combine at the base of the skull in a form of what they call sacred or sainted colostrum. It's everything that's allegorically distorted by the holiday we have coming up of Santa Claus is the sainted colostrum, which is red and white in its color. And just like we allegorically say a Christmas tree with lights going up it, with presents at the bottom, that we all focus on is actually the allegory for our spine and this sacred energy that moves up the lighted tree of your spinal cord and activates the star at the top to create this sacred secretion that activates the frontal cortex, which is literally the formula for you to develop psychic ability and perform supernatural feats, which we
Your
would
body
say,
activates.
as you said, only the prophets are capable of doing. But the science says we all have the capability to do this if we practice this. Thus reflected when Christ said, you all can perform divine acts. You have the capability. Now, do I believe and have I experienced and seen, not just my experiential knowledge, but I've seen, enough of the historical evidence to confirm that God came in human form to teach us that we have the ability to do this with our tech. Yes, that's what I truly have experienced is the case. That and not just that, but
that God has come in human form, you mean?
To teach us how to live in a divine way that was in the image of more of a perfect way than what we've fallen to, and also to activate this higher Christos method that we all have the capability to do it through our divine technology. And of course, the creator of that technology coming in human form would be able to access and do that in a more readily available way, but did always say, you have the ability to do this too.
And is this
And I found the techniques over the years that are the literal day-to-day practices that you would do to activate the scientific, biological, physiological side of that process that's tangible and real. It's not just a concept. It's not just something we're talking about metaphorically or spiritually. It's and I've been practicing those for over 20 years now.
So what can you tell us more about the technology, the body?
Well, the human body is a bioelectric system. It's a bioelectric charge system that not only is it a bioelectric system, but it's also a neurochemical system. And so it's experiencing and writing code all the time. So everything we feel and everything we physically do is being chemically written into our nervous system and our muscle tissue. And our muscle tissue is like a sponge, and it's full of these tiny cross-lateral fibers that are storing memory all the time. And that memory eventually becomes acidic, and that acidity level starts to eat away and corrode our nerve endings, which eventually result in neurodegenerative dis-ease, because all dis-ease is neurodegenerative in its source. And so that means that every sickness we have starts with neurodegeneration. Neurodegeneration starts with our nerves not being released, because nobody taught us we're supposed to be released. What's the easiest way to be released? Is by being touched. And that touch initially should have been taught to all of our people in every civilization, in every culture, is a common palpation of just squeezing. So we know about friend touch, we know about intimate touch, loving touch, and sexual touch. But most people aren't familiar with what one of my patients, this German patient of mine referred to as medicine touch. It's touch sheerly with the intent
To heal.
To move, to flush, to move stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we have a very limited understanding of touch, and most cultures, and this was part of what the film was about that I did, was to expose how alienated we are to touch in almost every culture on the planet.
But wouldn't people try to pervert that blessing of finding new ways to get access to women? For a man, because I saw this when I was in Spain, for example.
Of course. But what you're talking
girls.
about still fits into the corruption of an over-sexualized populace.
Yeah.
Okay, that's also extreme.
Sexually repressed, or a person that's
repression of sexuality then results in the counter polarity of perversion. But either way, there's a lack of true knowledge around the sacredness of sexuality, and there's an over-sexualization by the social engineered sexualization of humanity that's come through pop culture and through the mass media. It's just the case, you know, it is. And it's sad, but it is just the case. There's an over-sexualization in general on the planet right now. And that was done to distort one of our the most sacred power that we have. Needed to be corrupted and distorted, and our understanding of it became very corrupted and distorted. Why do you think that pornography it's just at such a out of control rate, you know what I mean? And also other horrible things like the sexualization of children and pedophilia and all these things
it's
that are
a different
distorted.
level of the more difficult it is to stimulate you. That's when you start. First, you get into homosexuality, then that doesn't stimulate you anymore. Then you get into children.
Yes, and
because you just want something to give you that kick.
At a more puritanical core of distortion is that we have distorted intimacy with sexuality.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So when you can identify intimacy to not be synonymous with sexuality, like you can be intimate with your friend without it having to do with sexual energy.
Yeah.
And when you can break touch from having to do with sexuality. See, what's happened is we're very alienated to touch.
For example, us right now having a conversation.
Yes, this
with
is a
no
form
sexuality
of,
being.
It was a form of intimacy in general. So but the problem is that because we're so alienated to touch and intimacy in all cultures, when we get into the space of touch and more intimacy, we can't help but start bridging it into sexuality because we're over-sexualized, and we also don't have an experience of touch and intimacy not being associated to sexuality. It's almost like no touch or touch being sexual or nothing at all. There's no common ground that's interfaced of medicine touch. Now, I'm not saying in many cultures...
Wouldn't the handshake be considered the common ground?
Yes, one of the more alienating still of contact forms is like, that's it. You know, I mean, hugs even are very alienating for people. People are uncomfortable with hugging. People come to this island.
I mean, it would also highly depend on context. For example, if I have my wife and another guy that I don't know or I don't feel comfortable about him, and then they hug.
Sure.
Me as the protector or the person that's responsible for her, I would feel uncomfortable. But if she were to, for example, hug her dad or her brother or whoever,
whatever,
it's a different context.
Of course,
of course, and it's also a gift for a woman for a man to hug a woman.
100%.
It's a gift.
Yes.
So as a man, out of chivalry, why would I want my wife or the gift of her body to be touched by a person that I would rather her not give him access to?
100%. And see,
so how would you go about?
Well, see, okay, so this is something that I appreciate in the Muslim psychology of the sacredness of a woman and intimacy and contact, and it actually lines up more with a more Christian psychology of contact and intimacy and devotion and the sacredness of the sacred relationship in marriage and also really the feminine honoring the masculine and really honoring the divinity.
On me too.
Exactly.
Because there's boundaries. If she hugs too long or if she becomes too soft, what does that make me look like?
100%. And at the same time, we've even had to create these constructs because this world is so distorted and fallen from true intentions and the true nature of people just being like good and godly.
If
and
we were in a perfect world, that wouldn't be a problem.
Wouldn't be an issue.
I keep saying to women in general, like, you're not, what you're saying is inherently correct, but in the context that you're in, you're not in touch with reality.
It's better reflective of my point that the world we're in is very distorted around contact and touch, and that our association to connection is distorted from elements of lust and in our weird,
her intentions may be pure. Exactly, her intentions may be pure, but 100%. His intentions are not.
100%.
Yeah, and that's what we're protecting it from.
100%. Yeah. And so, and that to me is part of this greater distortion that has that the impact I'm talking about is a less touched and released populace. Yeah. That is just alienated to touch and contact. And so whether we identify and dive into the sociological side of that, the physiological side is we all have a nervous system that's got a lot more neurochemical residue, more neural acidity, and the tissue is degenerating at a more accelerated rate as we get older.
How would you say a solution to that would be? Through family? Like you said, your mom would give you a massage.
I would say parents touch your kids a lot more, massage your kids, like make contact and incorporate touch to your children. As in a divine partnership, that like this is another thing I see that's sad even in committed sacred relationships.
What?
Like a lack of real honor for each other in sacred relationship. It becomes very like a very manufactured interaction of maybe a very goal-oriented sexual act with each other, and it's you know, it's a closed circuit. You guys are in your thing, you're devoted to each other, but there's no expansion. There's no expanded practices.
Like what?
Like massaging each other's back, or working on each other's feet, or expanding your intimacy outside of this very closed, manufactured construct of your intimacy. And that is a waste for you both in your sacred relationship and eventually those are the kinds of things that cause people to be unhappy from each other and break from their sacred unions. You have to keep stimulating and activating and expanding. In fact, it's spoken about, at least from a scriptural side, that sexuality is your obligation to each other to support you from going outside of your sacred marriage. It's like you have to, that is a responsibility you have for each other.
The more you're both satisfied, why would you want to look for something outside?
Exactly. And so that can be expanded upon from like some of the more beautiful advanced Eastern sciences with doing breath work together. This neuromuscular work is really powerful to do on each other. So when I treat couples, I show them how to do these techniques on each other, because then I'm like, you guys can practice on each other. This is a way you can engage more forms of intimacy outside of just the one act that you do that's like the thing that you do, you know?
Do you show that on your YouTube page, or how can people find that out?
There are some videos on the Matrix Body Mechanics TV that I in fact, there's several videos where I just show you how to do the principal techniques, the basic principles and techniques, and then you can start playing around on yourself and playing around on each other, and then from there, so much of it is intuitive, you know? So much of, once you learn the principles and techniques, now there's a whole beautiful system we do from head to toe that's super fun to learn, and we will be doing not only online content to show you how to do the whole head to toe pattern on yourself, which means you can practice on each other, but just learning the principles and techniques of how to go across the muscle and along the muscle and find the nerves and release the electricity. You can start playing around and practicing and playing on each other, and it's a way to incorporate not just intimacy and connection, but it also, you know, you'll play and work on each other and be like, wow, my arms feel great now, so do mine. Wasn't that productive for tonight that we got to have a different level of intimacy with each other, and oh my gosh,
you feel good individually,
and I feel better, and the next day you're like, oh my gosh, this still feels great, let's do this again. This time we'll work on each other's shoulders, this time we'll work on each other's feet, whatever. And so we actually have, a program at some point that will be for couples where you get to, you through a 7-day period, you're doing only even little 20-minute things on each other, 20 minutes on you, 20 minutes on her. You work on the shoulders, you work on the arms, you work on the chest or the abdomen, you work on the hips, and through 7 days, you just got through the whole body with each other.
You reset.
And you're feeling totally reset with each other. These are beautiful practices that are completely foreign to us, and I'm excited to start building more programs out for it. But as I was, I'm bringing it back to the yogic sciences. I had injuries from playing sports, and I had a neighbor who had come over to introduce himself and seen my massage table, and he had said, "Oh, I see you're learning massage. I developed just the base principles of a system that I haven't done anything with, because I trained with this woman, Ida Rolf. We've established Ida Rolf, started Rolfing. That was the spark of structural integration that came onto the scene. And then Ida Rolf, as she built her school, eventually passed away. And then the body of that school split into what's called the Rolfing Institute and structural integration. But either way, both of these forms of structural integration do not deal with the nervous system. And that's what this man, Taman McCall, was very focused on.
What's his name?
Taman McCall.
Taman McCall.
And
He's was the guy that came to your
He was a location manager, and he was in the film industry, and he had only really been practicing on friends and family and celebrities that would be on the movie sets with him and stuff like that. And so, he said, I could help you with your knee, and I kind of disregarded it at first because everyone in LA talks, But eventually I let him work on me, and not only did he reset my arm and shoulder, but he reset the muscles to where for weeks after it was different.
So
and I was like, what is this? Please teach me this. And he was like, oh, I don't really have a way of teaching on you. I'll just work on you. So over the next roughly...
It wasn't structured.
Yeah, it wasn't structured.
That's where you came in and you made a structure out of it.
And actually it was much harder because it wasn't like he was like, okay, this is this technique. I'm going to teach you this. It was like, I'll teach you by working on you. And so over the next really 5 to 10 years of him helping me, but over the next 2 to 3 years the most, he helped rehabilitate my knee. I regrew my ACL, which is unheard of.
You regrew your ACL?
Yes. I was told I had to have surgery and then completely regenerated it on my own with this work, where he was stimulating the nerves, and as he stimulated the nerves, my own body's intelligence started repairing the actual tissue.
Are you familiar with Joe Dispenza's work?
Yes, 100%.
And Bruce Lipton.
Yeah.
So would this align in the same category of that work?
It would, in the sense that this is actually like a practical application to a lot of the stuff that they talk about that's physiologically possible with what we would call the inner intelligence, or what we call the inner physician, which is this.
That's the program that you
This
made.
is the inner intelligence of your body. We could call it the God consciousness, and it's running all of the diagnostic and tasks. And over time, with what we call strama, which is stress plus trauma plus time. And really that's your day-to-day stress accumulated over time, and then your event-based traumas that have happened in your life. Now, ironically, your day-to-day stress over time, your body starts looking at equal to event-based traumas. They almost get looked at by the nervous system as one and the same. They ultimately all accumulate into this neurochemical residue that compromises the neurology in the circuitry of the body, which is the circuitry is the facilitator of the intelligence of the body, the inner physician. And so the inner physician then kicks into sympathetic mode, which is survival mode, and it just starts skipping some of the tasks.
That's where the degeneration starts.
Yeah, because now it's focusing on keeping you alive in the survival side, and it's forgetting about the degeneration in that shoulder. It's forgetting about the worn padding in that in your vertebral column. Now it's trying to focus on primary functions.
Wouldn't it be better to say, instead of forgetting, that it is simply bypassing it or not considering it a priority?
Yeah, exactly. Prioritizing what's going to help keep you alive. And so just like if you were running away from a bear, your body's going to direct the focus to your arms and legs to run and not your digestion, because if you get caught by this bear and it's eating you, it's not going to matter what you can digest. So the body looks at the rest of your system and its processes the same way. What I learned was, as he would work on my body, all of a sudden, and I'm like 18, 19 years old, I have all this crazy trauma coming up as he's working on these nerves.
How does it come up?
Oh my gosh, it's uncontrollable, like a Tourette syndrome, like all of a sudden as he starts activating the nervous system, I start remembering memories of traumas.
Because it's stored in that location.
My face is doing this, I'm laughing, I'm crying, it's like coming out like a purge that you would have
through his touch.
through activating the nervous system physically by going into the tissue. Yeah. And all of a sudden, then from there, all these endorphins come in, and there's a beautiful euphoria. But at the same time, yes. And then he would let me integrate. So then I would through. Well, I would get to lay on the table, and I'd be integrated, and I'd go in these deep zones, and then he'd come back in, and it would be like, oh shit, oh that's right, we're still doing this, because the deepest releases would be when he stopped. I would go into these super deep meditative states where my body would completely lay at rest, and I could feel my nerves running signals back and forth and up and down my legs, and that was that inner physician now running and diagnostic, because the nerves got reset, the chemical memory got flushed into the bloodstream, and all of a sudden my system got a chance to do an analysis of itself and start fixing things. And that's how I kind of internally started processing what was happening physiologically, was through the experience of it being done to me. But I was also so annoyed and frustrated with myself that he would be working on me, and there wasn't a point ever where I was like, you know, what you're doing this to me. Like him. Yes, like you're doing this to me and it's too intense. There was always like, I should be able to receive this. And why am I hitting these walls of weird trauma and pain and inflammation that shouldn't be there? Like I like when I work with patients, a lot of times the ego likes to go, oh, this is intense, you're doing this to me. I never had that the same way. I was always self-aware that what he's doing, digging out the muscles in my back, that like this shouldn't feel like this. Like this I'm full of a bunch of trauma and calcification and lactic acid and inflammation that shouldn't be there. I had a very like finite awareness that I'm fucked up. Like there's a lot of shit in here. It was frustrating because it would get to the point where I would be flipping and contorting off the table and I'd be like, I'm sorry. Gosh, I'd be so frustrated. Like, I just want to lay here and have you dig this out. But the reactionary trauma that was in me was so defensive initially that my defense mechanism would, and a lot of times, so over the years, I've come up with a really beautiful way to describe it to my patients. And also this man, like, was doing very primitive and intensive techniques with no warm-ups. So this is also what helped me in formulating my system, which I can't even say is mine, and formulating what I believe to be a very ancient system that is not mine.
NeuroMuscular Therapy, you named
NeuroMuscular Release Therapy there was no warm-ups towards, his fingers would hook at the tips like forceps, and he would just go in and rip and set the muscle tissue. And so what I saw was there needs to be warm-ups before you go into these deeper areas.
The client or the person that you're working on.
Yeah, any patient that was going to get realistically treated by this, I need to warm this tissue up before I go in and do a lot of this. And a lot of it I saw because I was like, wow, this would have helped me more if he had done this first. So from that, I extrapolated the principles and techniques that he was going for, and with the anatomy and physiology of other systems that I had learned, gotten certified, gotten licensed in from shiatsu.
Is this what motivated you to go into massage therapy? Because you said you went to college.
I was already in. But none of the systems I was learning did for me what this did when this man would just wrench on me for 15 minutes.
And you felt the difference?
Without a question, it was beyond anything I had ever seen before, Rolfing, any of it. And primarily because Rolfing and structural integration primarily deals with the myofascial webbing, which is a whole network of webbing that's underneath your tissue.
Very few people talk about
your dermal layers, but above your muscles, right? But what about underneath there? And what I found was with NeuroMuscular Release Therapy, we're breaking up the myofascial webbing as a bystander between the deeper structural work that we're doing and the nerves. And so what I noticed was that he had a very primitive way of mapping the nervous system from the brachial plexus down to radial ulnar, medial musculocutaneous.
Is that where you keep pressing?
And then vagus, the polyvagal nerve system. And so I started to study deeper into my anatomy and physiology and started to route and really write out the map out what he was trying to do. And then I started to incorporate it with my clients for massage, and eventually as I started doing it, there was a pattern that started forming through repetition with me doing it and with me learning multiple systems. There were templates: shiatsu, reflexology, lomi, Swedish massage. There's a template of how you move through the meridians in the nervous system, and eventually the principles and techniques of NMRT started to formulate through that template. And that's where we came up with originally, I used to do it in 10 sessions that would be like an hour. So it would be like I tried to format it off to the Rolfing, which was not practical because people were like, this takes too long, like can we do 5 sessions? And so then we got it into 5 sessions, and then eventually we got it into 3 sessions, and eventually through my own feedback from patients I was working with, they would be like, can we just combine the 3 into 2? And it was like, why wouldn't we? Why would I have to come back a 3rd time? Let's elongate the sessions to be longer.
So there'd be 2-hour sessions?
There'd be 2 sessions. Eventually it refined and evolved into being 2.5 to 3 hour sessions in what we would call the first and NeuroMuscular Release Therapy series we would do that's called the spring cleaning. And we call it the spring cleaning because it takes more energy and time to get through that reactionary defense system that I talked about. That's in every person I saw. Every person has that. And so
just like the people in your documentary, I saw some really great testimonials there by that NFL player Keith Mitchell. He shared a very interesting testimony there. And also Govinda, the guy with Parkinson's disease. The way it started, how intense his Parkinson's was, and then towards the end, that was very...
Just laying at rest, full parasympathetic. That's a really good example of...
Really neat. This is one of the main motivations that I really wanted to conduct this episode, because a lot of people would highly benefit from the work that you're doing, but they're unaware of its existence.
Exactly.
I personally never saw Parkinson's heal that way, just through... I wouldn't say just touch, but also educated touch or medicine touch, like your friend would say. And what else would you say regarding breathwork? How would breathwork integrate as well into this work?
Well, that's kind of an interesting full circle that came around, was that...
Because you're talking about electricity, right? So how
the breath was always incorporated in the healing work, but it wasn't until years later, as I got into ice bath therapy, and I went through a lot of Wim Hof's work, which people are familiar with, and getting into the ice, and the science behind that is, under 32 degrees for 3 minutes resets the whole nervous system and creates the production of cold proteins and stem cells in the body, right?
So does the work you do also regenerate or activate stem cells in the body? Is it the same effect?
It does, but more the direction I'm going with it is that the breath work he was doing was all through the mouth. And so as someone who has been a breathwork practitioner for over 20 years, I've learned a lot of I've learned a lot of beautiful science about the tech that we have. And one of those is that when you breathe through your nose, you have a spurt of, well, first of all, your nose has over 28 functions besides just taking in air.
28?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. From the olfactory senses that you have to blocking toxic materials. That's
like the hairs?
No, like when you do the expression for disgust, like this, when you do that, it actually blocks the nasal passage from taking in toxic smells. It's actually like a cut-off blockage way. It actually can protect you from inhaling toxic things. That's why you perform that disgust, going like... but one of the cool functions that it does is every time we breathe through the nose, you have a spurt of nitric oxide that releases from your nose, which is why it's so important that you breathe through your nose. Is nitric oxide increases oxygen absorption by about 19 to 20%. So
absorption through the body, you mean?
Through the blood, for oxygen, which we want.
And also mouth breathing affects your skeletal structure.
It affects your jaw. You're also breathing into a lower chambered center, where when you breathe through your nose, you're breathing into the upper respiratory instead of the lower respiratory, so it changes how your whole frame even works.
But wait, this is interesting now. In yoga, don't they always tell you to breathe into your belly?
There's a lot of things that have been mistaught, they tell you to bring belly breathing. They tell you to breathe that way with singing.
So you can have a
but even belly breathing, you're not supposed to fill and chamber your stomach. You're supposed to actually breathe pulsing inward. You see, so this is so much of the distortions in the Western world culture that's happened from the Eastern sciences. And being raised in the Eastern sciences, this is one of my bigger annoyances that I've had, and where I've really become an advocate, because this is what happens when Eastern science gets warped into Western culture because you have because what do you know? You're just in this yoga class and they're telling you, this is the teacher, and they're telling you to do this.
Without
so
any discernment.
You just don't have any reference point.
Exactly.
You don't have any baseline to know that. You could go to another yogic teacher who would be like, no, that's completely fucking wrong. Like, this is not how we do this. So, but I want you to just think logically. Does it make sense to breathe and circulate your prana or your life force in a lower center or in a higher center?
I mean, also in terms of, if you want to say logic, but also location. Your heart is here.
I was going to say also, how about your lungs are here and your stomach is here? Why would you be circulating air in your stomach and digestion rather than in your lower and upper respiratory? You actually have two sets of lungs. You have the lower lungs, the base lungs, and then you have these tiny little wing-like flaps that are the upper respiratory, which you really can
What are
only...
those? I never knew
Yeah,
about those.
most people don't know about these. You only see the lower lungs.
Yeah, those two big ones on the side. Yeah.
You have these tiny little
like bulbs?
they're kind of like sacs. You have two separate sacs from
Air
the
goes
lower.
there?
Air goes into here, and it only really goes in through the nasal passage when you're breathing through the nasal passage. So, and so, what I noticed about Wim Hof's breathing was it was all belly breathing through the mouth, and so that's when I was led to something that is kind of the more contemporary form of breath that I do now, that I'm bringing it back to neuromuscular therapy, is really powerful for helping to get through the disarming that neurochemical defense system, which is what happens when you're upset when you're a child. We do something, we go like this. You ever seen a kid and they go You ever see that? Little kid does that?
in one of your YouTube channels. It's how you were breathing in the ice bath.
In the ice bath, exactly.
Yeah.
Because your body will show you the greatest truth of the technology itself. So what is that child naturally being led to do? They're breathing through two ports for the oxygen, nose and mouth. Check it out. I'm going to slow it down.
Oh, so you're breathing through both.
Exactly. It's called double ventilated breathing. So why would I breathe just through my mouth when I can breathe through both and I exhale out through the mouth? So, so all of a sudden, I start playing with this reverse engineered technique that's revealed that our body tells us intuitively to do to calm us down when we're upset, when we're little. And all of a sudden I started to notice that I had twice the oxygen intake and absorption along with that nitric oxide than I was getting from the Wim Hof breathing. So I started incorporating it into the ice bath. It took the practice to another level. Then I broke my ankle, and it incorporated the practice to another level, doing the double ventilated breathing. Then I was on the table getting neuromuscular therapy done from one of my practitioners, struggling through a hip sequence. I start doing the double ventilated breathing. All of a sudden I could receive the intensity through the hips. It grounded me, it gave me focus. And so that's now what we teach, coming back full circle, to patients if they're struggling on a section, double ventilated breathing. Not only does it make you focus on this, it gives you more oxygen absorption, it calms the nervous system, and it gives you a grounding, in a sense, to the intensity of what's needing to be released. Yeah.
This is all very insightful information, and one of the experiences that I've had with breathwork, because I learned all this stuff at a later stage. During my childhood, I was not very tapped into all this different forms of knowledge. And then as I traveled and did more research online, and I was more ready and capable of receiving that information, I started practicing holotropic breathwork. And one thing I noticed about myself and my body after the session, or even during the session, is extremely subtle but very intense vibration all throughout my hands. And I would feel like there's energy coming out of my hands. I can't see it, but I can feel it. I'd literally be looking at myself like that. I'm like, what is this? I feel different. And also another thing was how my voice would be deeper, as well as I would be going through certain traumas and then releasing them mentally. So how would that integrate with neuromuscular therapy? Was that something that you stimulate by touch, which is very similar to what happens through breathwork?
Yeah, I mean, I've teach some forms of holotropic breathing, and I have my own issues with holotropic breathing taught in the West, because if your nervous system is not really well prepped and you're taking yourself through a heightened oxygenation of the blood, through extensive, some people doing these like hour-long, having you go through this very intensive, you see patients or people start getting what's called tetany.
Yeah, he did mention that during the sessions.
Exactly, and they tell you that because your nervous system is not really conditioned to allow that level of energy to move through you, and so it's very similar to...
You're not ready for it.
People pushing Kundalini breath work and having what they call Kundalini syndrome. And this is, again...
So what is that?
It's where you're moving the bioelectric charge up your spine without a nervous system that's very well conditioned to do it, because this is where the teaching and the meticulousness of detail and the science and the discipline and the practices for years and years before you go into this, the initiation is not there because it's not culturally there. I'm going to give you a really interesting but simple metaphor, is that everyone is a fucking DJ today. Like, I come from a culture where I had DJ mentors. I've been a DJ for 27 years. And back in the day, you couldn't be a DJ unless you could mix two turntables, and that was very apparent. So you couldn't front about that. So the DJs that were DJs were literally established through their performance, and you were like, that's a dope DJ. And so then you would then follow those DJs and potentially get to mentor or apprentice with those DJs, and then they would teach you, hopefully, and then take you under their wing, and then you could eventually develop those skills, because it was very hard to just figure out how to do it on your own. You had to be apprenticed, and nowadays we have technology where people can just punch and play, but there's all of this initiation that you don't get to go through as a DJ that you're missing by not having the cultural aspect of what it was to come to the fruition of what it is to mix music. And so equally with breath work, with these ancient practices, there's something that's not culturally there in the West that sadly is void, which is why you have things like tetany, and you have things like Kundalini syndrome, and you have people saying, oh yeah, Kundalini is like a demon shit, and
some people
it's like demons can't create anything.
They only infiltrate.
So you don't have a bioelectric charge moving up your spine from demons, because God created that, because it's there, and demons don't create things. So that should debunk some of these people in the first place, but it doesn't, because the ignorance is very dense and the cognitive dissonance is very dense. But just remember...
And also it awakens you to the delusion of the structure, the control structure that they try to keep people under.
Of course.
Because once you're empowered, you don't feel like you need to be under this person's authority.
I even see it's less malicious to be like they're ignorant, and they're speaking about something that they don't know. But the thing is, it is a sin to speak falsely about things. It doesn't matter if your intention
when you know that it's false.
Even if you don't, be careful of what your words are. Do not speak falsely about anything. So you should know what you're talking about if you're going to talk about it. So when I see these people speaking about the Kundalini's evil and all this, I'm like, you don't even realize you are sinning. If that's what's important to you, is sinning, right? You are literally doing that right now, because you are speaking about something that you don't really know about.
Which is,
and you'll hear him be like, I practiced Kundalini from 2022 to 2023 a year, and they're like, and I can tell you all about it. And I'm like, really, from practicing it not even a year, you can tell us about it as if you know about it? Like, over the people whose culture have integrated it for literally centuries. Like, wow, welcome to the West. Welcome to the narcissism and self-righteousness of the West, and the ignorance of misguided people with good intentions.
But can't you say that sometimes it happens to people unintentionally? Like with me when I was in Germany, I was going through very intense experiences.
But had you had a one-on-one teacher that you never would have been put in that position.
Yeah, but I was told about, because I was having a lot of different symptoms in my life. And then it was also, I feel, was induced by severe trauma. And being very physically fit, because I used to play soccer at a pretty good level. So that intense fitness with trauma, and then I started noticing a lot of synchronicities around me, seeing almost every other number would be a sequence. So I felt like I was going crazy, and then I started, these two guys I met in Nuremberg in Germany. And I was telling them what was happening. This word Kundalini never came into my vocabulary. Right. And then as I was telling him, he was just like, yeah, your Kundalini is activating. I was like, what is that? He was like, look it up. And then as I started looking it up, I watched more videos on YouTube. I was like, okay, this seems interesting.
Most people don't fully understand. They label Kundalini awakening, and this is where I see a lot of like the sensation of a bioelectric charge moving up your spine and activating this synthesis in your brain is a very specific sensation. It's different than I'm having like my nervous system starting to like have some jitters or waves or electricity, or I feel electricity in my arms. It's a very, and so I see a lot of people saying I had a Kundalini awakening when it's like I've actually had a Kundalini awakening because I've spent over 20 years practicing these arts, which is normally when you really do have something like that. And it's profoundly different than what I hear your average person describe a Kundalini awakening having to be, because we don't have the cultural infrastructure to even really dive into what these sciences are. And we have people thrown into Kundalini classes with 40 people in it, you know what I mean? And you're getting 1/40th of any teacher's attention. And so it's very, like I said, very westernized in these systems and sciences, and that's why one of my intentions with whether it be videos on our matrix body mechanics or teaching or doing online classes at Syncretism Society was very much to try to get as much of what I got to be blessed to have, which is more of a Eastern format of one-on-one guidance and support and detail with the process. Even if I'm shooting a video that goes out, I try to create that experience because I don't know anything other than that. To be one-on-one with one of my teachers, sitting there having some tea, going through the mechanics of breath and understanding the details and the nuances of it. So and again, very much does that apply and segue to the NeuroMuscular Release Therapy. They started to work just irrevocably in conjunction with each other, because we're still working around the nervous system and trauma that needs to come through the body, and an awakening of that deeper, higher intelligence to start forming higher functions, basically.
So that therapy that you do helps induce and reawaken that.
100%. It actually supports the advancement of the yogic practices by resetting your nervous system, or anything. I mean, that's why I work with a lot of pro athletes and martial artists. Will reset their nervous system and they'll have higher level performance. So yeah, we only do have 40 practitioners for neuromuscular therapy in the world right now, and our goal is very much to get the first 100 practitioners as beacons for the system. And so we're doing apprenticeship programs all through next year. And
online or no location?
No, in Los Angeles, both at the clinic that I have a practice and also
Where
here.
Where is that clinic?
In Beverly Hills.
Oh, really?
Robertson,
Nice.
yeah. And and that will be one of the first neuromuscular therapy clinics in the United States there, outside of my clinic and practice I have here. And then we're also doing apprenticeship programs here on the island. We have some beautiful...
In Kauai?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay, so
at least this year we have one we're doing here, and we might be doing the other ones in Los Angeles. It's more accessible for people, but we are doing one here as I did cultivate the system here, and I've been...
I mean, you do have a very beautiful and integrative house.
I have a amazing Balinese Shangri-La in Malawa'a here that's a massive compound.
It's also on Kauai? Okay.
That I've been called to do an apprenticeship program for the last 10 years there.
So you have 3 locations, 2 in Kauai and 1 in LA.
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
And so
this will also be in the description. We'll put the details in the description.
And you know, it's a really important thing for us to get like foundational beacons for this system. Eventually, when we start an institute, this same training will be 3 to 6 months to become a level 1 NMRT practitioner. But we're doing a 12-day intensive, 8-9 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
Right now for our apprenticeship program, because our goal is to produce NMRT practitioners right now. So it's a beautiful opportunity to learn this work at a more accelerated rate than what will be when we have an institute, and the course will be extended out for a much longer period of time.
How do people get in touch with you to become practitioners?
Matrixbodymechanics.com or matrixbodymechanics@gmail is a good way to write our administrator. She will introduce to you what it is, our procedure and protocol to be able to...
So you have a form on the website, or they can send you an email?
There is actually, if you go to the education side for the website, you can write us and apply for an apprenticeship and write us your, why
Reason.
you feel called. Yeah, tell us about yourself. We normally take intermediate to advanced practitioners for this as a form because we want you to have a foundation, but we have had some amazing practitioners that have had no formal training. That have become integral in our movement, that felt the call and answered the call. And I feel, one of the first steps is obviously watching the film. Release the movie. If
Get
you go
an
to
idea.
releasethemovie.com, and it triggers something. There's it activates a call, and some people feel just really like they're supposed to do it. In fact, the last 2 apprenticeship programs we had were full of students that saw the film and then came out to
I just recently
learn the
met
work.
one that when we were at your restaurant.
That's right.
Jacob. She told, Tatiana.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah.
It was a very inspiring story. She literally left everything from Germany to come all the way out here and learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she actually wrote one of the most prolific emails to us about just getting the greater vision and what she wanted to specifically do, working with people specifically in foster care who have physical trauma accumulation from abuse and things like that. And so that's the beautiful thing, is there's an avenue for different, unique outlets for NMRT to be taken, whether in sports medicine or, specifically in physical, sexual, or emotional abuse therapy, or in post-op rehabilitation.
So it's all
formats.
encompassing many different aspects depending
Resetting
on what you
your
need.
nervous system is going to help you in all aspects of that. I've never seen anything resetting your nervous system doesn't do, because it is the circuitry of your body. It's everything. It's where the intelligence lies. And that's the thing, is that our techniques just activate your inner physician to fix you. We're not really doing anything to you. Your physical inner healer is fixing you, and that's the difference.
It's like an engine in a car being fixed.
And turning on.
The engine itself is the
Whereas
the
other
device.
forms of body work are going to deal more specifically with kind of treating your inner physician while it's asleep. When you treat the nerves turn on, the consciousness of the body turns on. If you don't wake the nerves up, it's kind of like if I gave you a massage and you were asleep, you're going to miss out on a lot of the massage, right? But if I wake you up, you're going to be more involved and engaged in the process.
You're more conscious of the differences.
You're present.
So on that note, let's get your thoughts on the pandemic and the vaccines that... How do those vaccines affect people that would want to heal from them?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that mRNA is, and messing with mRNA is a very evil thing to do. I mean, it's, again, we're looking at this transhumanistic movement that's trying to say, ultimately it's a very anti-Christ thing, if your body is this brilliant piece of technology, why do we need to modify or mutate it in any way?
Or give control of it to some external source?
Modifying your genetic infrastructure from its perfection is naturally going to not make it better in any way. And we've seen that in the statistics, whether it be that Italy was leading the way in the most vaccinations that took place, almost 90% of the population, and there hasn't been a birth for a record 3 or 4 months in Italy, not a single birth recently.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
This is new information.
Yeah. So, and that's
what do you think of the quote unquote pandemic?
Well, it was a occult ritual that was designed to orchestrate fear and control, and also a beta test for greater agendas that are looking to be carried out with humanity. And the level of control, manipulation, and eugenics. Ultimately, I would say dysgenics, actually, because eugenics is about breeding out good stock. Dysgenics is more, they're trying to wipe out a certain level of good qualities in humanity, and we could include the depolarization, the feminization of the masculine and the masculinization of the feminine to be aspects of that social engineering and the gender war element being a part of that dysgenics program.
Just like how this experiment they made about the frogs that became gay, or some of them even lost
it's called atrazine. It's called atrazine, and it's called multiple other chemicals that actually cause this.
And the increasing in levels of vaccinations in babies. That's all by design.
It is
from the government in order to
so
keep
much
people.
of it is based on a deception and lie. The concept of virology is a lie. It was
the
all
germ
based
theory versus
off
the
of,
terrain theory.
Exactly, which is where you go into Pasteur's work, or you go into Antoine Béchamp's work, and Antoine Béchamp and actually another scientist actually had more legitimate scientific research, which Louis Pasteur actually ripped off a lot of that, but he was more funded. Because what he was working on was creating the need for petroleum sales and products for these larger globalist agendas to be carried out, where Antoine Béchamp was dealing more with the sovereignty of your body. It actually just needs to be fit and healthy and well nourished, and then your terrain, your environment will protect itself. Where we got sold on the lie of virology, which ironically is based off, you can see the coded deception. Virology and germ theory says that a germ can jump from one individual to another and make that other person sick. When the reality
it's also a belief system.
It is a belief, because the reality is, at least on and we're not talking scientism, is that germs are exchanging between us all, you and me, right now.
And everything, everywhere.
Everywhere.
We have trillions of germs all over.
And so that is just what's happening at all. And so that's not the case. If it was the case that germs could just jump from one person to another and make us sick, we would all be a lot sicker. Okay?
Depends on your
frequency. But the reality is, your lymphocytes, your killer T cells, your body's defenders are what protect your terrain, so that all the germs that are exchanging don't actually take hold on your immune system, because your immune system is strong. So I'll give you an example. This neurovirus where it's making people sick and throw up. Have you seen this thing where people are just puking a lot on the island right now?
No.
It lasts about 12 hours. It's pretty...
Here in Kauai?
Puke their brains out, and they get through it pretty quick. Like, everyone in my family has had it.
I haven't.
Except for
I'm
myself.
still new on the island.
Except for myself. Why? Everyone got COVID in my household except for me. Why? Because my terrain is strong. I'm still coming in contact with all the same germs and viruses. Why are they not making a play on my system?
Your frequency could be a factor.
It's not just my frequency, it's my epigenetic constitute, it's my breath work, it's my level of killer T cells, it's my level of lymphocytes, it's my level of security that I have in my system being strong. Now, isn't it interesting that they've been weakening our security systems of our cellular defense through radionics fields, through chemicals, through pasteurization, through pesticides? So what happens is, when you weaken somebody's system, it creates the illusion that a germ could hop from one to another and make you sick. This is where they can justify, well, let me give you this vaccine. It's going to protect you from these germs. See, so they've actually, this is like a several stage process to weaken the immune
multi-layered
system.
as well, from different aspects.
So that way it
Also has to do with the
justifies
electromagnetics.
their theory that germs hop from person to person. The reality is, the only reason it's appearing to be like that is because we've been so collectively weakened over large durations of time, from the food, from the radionics field, that
And brainwashed.
all of us
Like, if I convince
are
you,
weaker. And our systems are down, so it can appear that something can hop from person to person. But the reality is, for those of us that in the midst of a sabotage to our immune systems have remained strong, we are an anomaly, aren't we? My whole house can get COVID and I don't get anything at all. How does that work? I'm exposed to the same things as everyone else. Everyone can get this neurovirus. I'm cleaning their puke up. I'm totally in the midst, on the heart of the germs. Why am I not
no
getting
gloves
sick?
or
Nothing.
hazmat suits and on?
It's because I've built a strong terrain. It takes effort.
Yeah.
It's
People don't want the
different than
effort.
just getting a shot
Yeah.
and saying, I'm protected. See, that's the same thing. We've been sold on the quick fix too, haven't we?
It's just as bizarre as telling someone, okay, here, have this pill, you'll become very
healthy.
fit.
You'll be very fit.
You're gonna
instead
get
of you
six-pack
have
abs
to
and
earn
run
it.
as fast as
Exactly.
Usain Bolt.
Exactly,
No, Usain Bolt put a lot of effort into being where he is.
And that's part of where the deception we've been sold on is we've been sold on the quick fix. Yeah, because people are inherently lazy.
Yeah.
And they don't want to put the work in to produce the results that they want to have.
That's why part of me stopped feeling very, very sympathetic towards people's ignorance, is because, like you said earlier, the cognitive dissonance, no matter how much you show them, they just don't want to believe it. Even if it's very obviously true, it's going to affect their version of the reality that they're subscribed to.
100%.
All right, so let's, now that we've talked about vaccine and your general take on, we can talk about this for a very long
could
time.
go deep into it.
Yeah, but
and
let's
also
save that for another episode.
there's a protocol that we should talk about at some point. If you have unfortunately modified your genetic infrastructure, there's a 3-stage protocol that is your best chance to repair your genetic coding and pull the nanotechnology and graphene out of your system.
How so?
And me and several medical doctors have put together this trio package, and there's extensions to it that you could work with, like stem cell regenerative nutraceuticals that are really powerful, mitochondrial nutraceuticals that are really supportive. But the 3 stages are, you have to detox the cesium-137. That's one of the many things they've been poisoning us with for decades.
I don't know what that is.
Cesium-137 is a radioactive isotope.
Okay.
It's actually what powers the nanotech that they inject into you that's writing the mRNA manipulation of your genetics through these nanobots. So the cesium-137, when in you, because you're bioelectric, right?
Yeah.
It acts as a radioactive isotope. It powers the device that's inside of you that's writing the coding. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. I think you and me should definitely have another.
When you detox the cesium-137, you cut off the power to the nanotechnology. We do that through something called marine magnesium.
Okay.
So the marine magnesium is going to detox you. The next step is pulling the graphene and the nanotechnology out of the cellular tissue, which we do through a specific type of supercharged carbon-60 molecule, because the carbon-60 acts like a magnet and draws all the graphene, the nanotech out of the system. And then the third step is going to be the most challenging one, but it's challenging because it's exposing, again, one of the larger deceptions in humanity right now and from Western medicine, which is that you produce your own perfect medicine to heal anything that's wrong with you.
You as in your body.
Your body, your technology produces a medicine that you've been told is a waste product. And you've been told it's a waste product.
Your plaque? Or
You've been
mucus?
told it's a waste product because they don't want you to know that you produce your own perfect medicine so that you buy their medicine from their multi-billion-dollar Western medical and industrial complex. And that is a medicine that is full of your own stem cells. It's full of all the antibodies for anything that's wrong with you. It's full of all of the nutrients from your food that you couldn't bioavailably absorb from the night before. And it has the morphogenetic coding to repair your genetics from being damaged. And that is what's known in the Indian culture as Shambhavu, or uropathy, or urine therapy. Your urine is literally a customized medicine, and when you drink it, it literally gives you a biofeedback readout of your entire chemical infrastructure, all your imbalances, any toxins or toxicity levels in your body, and within 24 hours your body recalibrates itself. It also has any antibodies for anything that's wrong with you. It has all the nutrients from your food that you couldn't absorb, and it holds a concentration of your own original stem cell coding. Now, if you take a stem cell nutraceutical like one of the companies that I work with that releases 10 million stem cells from your bones every time you take it, and then you cycle your urine, now you're getting a concentration of stem cells from your bones heightened in the urine that then is going to start recycling and rehabilitating the damaged genetics of your body.
I think that's an entire episode by itself.
It's an entire episode in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely...
But it felt important to state it
For sure.
for those that want to actually figure out or find out more about this. You know?
So where can they find this?
So the protocol, they can contact us. They can write us at Matrix Body Mechanics.
Okay.
And we are actually working on like a pre-organized packet where you have all of these things I've talked about. Obviously, you produce your own perfect medicine, so that stage you have to learn to incorporate on your own. But the marine magnesium, the carbon 60, we're working on a collective packet that's already assembled, so you don't have to go source those from other places because we've found the best sources.
Okay.
We're currently working on that right now, and the publisher for my cookbook and I have a deep passion with really, focusing on giving people the opportunity to rehabilitate on a genetic level from what's been done. She just released, published a book called Unjected, which has been climbing up and doing really well, and it's about exposing a lot of this stuff as well. So
it's reversing the effects of the vaccine.
Doing our best to try to, so she's very passionate about us putting this together as well. But just alone diving into and understanding the science of uropathy, there's a book called Your Own Perfect Medicine. A bunch of doctors have actually put together a website cataloging all this science because they've been so blown away. Yes. And I
did look into it, and it said you need to be guided at first so that you don't harm yourself. What do you think? Because if I for example, tonight just go and pee in a cup and drink it.
Yeah, so it's pretty basic. So the first couple seconds, the last couple seconds are like going to be what you would consider to be the waste part of it. The first couple seconds, last couple seconds.
So you pee
the rest is
second,
all
get the
perfect
middle,
medicine.
and then not the ending.
But even many people would tell you there's new studies finding that even what they refer to as the waste in it, toxins, whatever, are actually homeopathically processed. So when you put them in your body, the body has identifying markers to see what's off in your system and and it counteracts those toxins, let's say pesticides or whatever is in you. So they're saying even the waste in you has been processed homeopathically to act as an indicator for the body's intelligence to fix and balance whatever. The first stream of the day is going to have the most concentrated stem cells and vitamins and nutrients.
As soon as you wake up.
It's also the strongest and most intense. But kind of like if you've ever had a liquid vitamin B or one of those liquid vitamins, they're very strong and very intense because vitamins are intense. That's basically what you're looking at.
I also saw this therapy where it's extremely controversial, but apparently it does have a strong effect where you eat the shit or feces from a healthy person.
Yes,
and you get their I didn't really dive
fecal repollination stuff. I mean, I'm not sure about the eating of the fecal, but I know that there's fecal suppositories where they actually put bacteria that's like, because it's about cultivating other bacteria that you've lost because our microbiomes are so destroyed. And that's where our super probiotic that we have from this company we're building called The Cloud is so powerful. It has over 60 lactobacillus strains. Most yogurts have 6. Our yogurt has over 60 working in harmony. That's what you showed me in
your restaurant.
And
that's something that which was pretty much the main reason we were gonna have this episode, and then we found out that there's a lot more to discover with you. But let's talk about your food and the raw. How would you call it? The raw what? Raw diet, or what is it?
I mean, it's living plant-based nutrition.
What does living mean?
Well, living means anything that's cooked under 117 degrees. Keeps its enzymatic infrastructure. So enzymes start to deteriorate over 117 degrees. So
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit.
Okay.
So when you're cooking foods, when you're dehydrating, when you're drying foods, if you're over 117 degrees, it starts deteriorating the enzymatic infrastructure. Over 80% of your enzymes your body expects you're going to get from your food. So we're eating all this cooked and dead food. So it was the combination of training in this puritanical yogic context of plant-based nutrition fused with my own journey of the vegan diet, which I immersed myself in for almost a decade.
How so?
It was part of my spiritual practice that I dove deep into.
To become a vegan?
Yeah, the vegan diet for almost 10 years.
Are you a vegan now?
No. I mean, my diet is not limited to. My diet is primarily vegan, but since that evolution, I learned a lot about the blood, and I work with a lot of doctors that do advanced blood analysis, and so blood and biochemistry has a lot to do with what works for you. And I actually, like many vegans, was extremely anemic after a period of time. And as an O blood type, I require
You're
something.
O blood type.
Yeah, I require something called hemi-iron. And hemi-iron you can only get specifically from red-blooded animal proteins.
Okay.
So that's just what it is.
So you didn't feel good when you were on the
I felt
diet.
amazing because my body was eating its nutritional supply for a period of years, but after a certain point your body goes, see, your body requires a certain number of calories and nutrients and vitamins and amino acids and things like hemi-iron, and when it doesn't get it, it starts eating it off of its own reserve.
Yeah, that's why they become anemic.
So at first you feel amazing because you're eating yourself and you're getting everything you need, and that's why people are like, oh, I feel so amazing, this is so great.
You're cleansing.
You are cleansing, but in a sense you're consuming yourself. It's a form of cannibalism.
Okay.
Keeping it real.
Yeah.
And actually one of my fellow colleagues, an elder practitioner, was writing a book about self-cannibalism, that he was writing about today's Western culture and the diet psychosis, that there are people that are literally cannibalizing. They're eating themselves because they don't understand that if you don't get this regimen of nutrients, and your body doesn't care where it comes from, your brain has its own ideology about where stuff comes from and beliefs and all your spiritual and all this, that your body is the one processing the nutrients. It doesn't care.
Yeah.
It just knows, I need these things. If I don't get it, I'm going to eat it off of you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to eat it off your muscle at first, and then your fat, and then eventually your brain.
Here we are at his kitchen, and there is a very interesting story behind the development of this kitchen. What can you tell us about how this kitchen developed?
Well, this kitchen literally rose from the ashes because we were open 5 years ago at Kalia Farms. And
where's that?
Just down the way here, about a couple miles down by Kalia Beach. And we had a beautiful setup under a monkey pod tree, and we created a beautiful kind of vortex for patrons to come. We were just outside of the line of sight from the main road, which was our one challenge. So you had to kind of go around a corner to see us, but we were on a farm called Kalia Farms, and we built a beautiful, literally kind of a sustainable vortex that served our living foods. And we have something called the Prosperity movement, where we serve something called the Prosperity Bowl. On the menu, there's a little rainbow strip on the side, and that was food for those in need in the community that didn't have any money or any food. We served a different bowl of food each day and offered it for those in need for free, and served over 1,000 bowls, prosperity bowls, over 8 months that we were open. And then unfortunately, because of the politics of the farm, and unfortunately the corrupt lease owner of the farm who ran it, he illegally evicted us. And then one of his cohorts, one of the people associated to him, lit our kitchen on fire.
Lit it on fire? How so? Or why? First of all, why would they do that, and how was he corrupt, if you'd like to share that?
I mean, it was a really strange thing. It had to do with him wanting us to get established in our own power dynamic, because we were paying an exorbitant amount of utilities to him, which was a non-issue because we were paying him for our power, but he had wanted us to get set up. We had made multiple attempts with the electric company to get set up. They weren't able to set us up. And
he wanted you to set your own self up so that you
for a different power box, so that we wouldn't have to pay to the farm. But there were several vendors that we all paid utilities to him. So
so you were paying your dues. You weren't taking it.
We were paying more than our dues. In fact, they would fractionalize the energy that the different vendors would use, and we used a very small fraction compared to some of the other vendors. So really, we were paying more than our share and had no issues with it. And he had wanted us to get set up separately. We made several attempts with the power company, and they couldn't do it for us. We communicated that, and we thought we had moved through that. And ironically, before I went to LA to set up more of an expansion for Mandala in Los Angeles, and also he had a poi which is one of our local produce things, taro. He had wanted to.
What do you mean poi?
Well, taro root is made into poi. It's pulverized and fermented. It's kind of like almost like a yogurt. So we.
Yeah, I saw that once at a restaurant.
So we make pies with it, and I just made a poi curry right now, actually, before we did the interview. And so we were incorporating it into our menu and using it. And he had sat down and had a meeting with us that they had wanted to expand their poi business. And so I had headed to LA thinking everything was all good.
Yeah.
And I was expanding and supporting this process. It seemed very exciting, and we had moved through our stuff. And I was sent from one of our workers an image of a illegal eviction notice placed on our kitchen, saying we had like 4 or 5 days to vacate the premises of the farm.
On what basis?
Which is illegal, because even if you have someone place an eviction notice, you have 40 plus days to move from a space. You can't evict someone in 5 days. So it was a very almost like
get out,
redneck style, like nothing to do with the actual legality or lawfulness of what we are entitled to as a tenant, that we have a due process and time. And even then, upon your due process for an eviction, there has to be a legal representative, like a sheriff or somebody there present. And
to go through the validation,
just to be present if anything's damaged, whatever. And so his eviction was just something he wrote up on a piece of paper and signed and said, you have 5 days to vacate, which we basically disregarded because we knew our legal rights.
Yeah.
And
what motivated him to do that?
Because
if it's in terms of money, you're paying
yes, exactly. He made it about the power. We explained that, we established where we were at, and that the power company had established that he was in charge of the power, and he was required to offer us power as a tenant. And we were confused because we were expanding forward with the business, and it was a show of power, sadly. And
why would he want to do that?
Because some people with no power like to try to demonstrate it with the limited amount of power that they have within their dynamic. And he saw himself as the king of the farm. And we had found out after our illegal eviction and everything happened that he had done acts of this with some of the immigrant farmers who were illegally here. He would damage their equipment and then tell them he's not replacing it because they're illegal. What can they do?
It's a form of bullying, technically.
We found, surprisingly, I guess not surprisingly, a lot of different stuff like that he was doing to other people, other tenants on the farm. And the way that, the divine works in this life, not shortly after, the landowners of the property eventually kicked him off of it.
So he wasn't the owner?
He wasn't. He was a lease. He had the lease for the farm. So he was then evicted after that. He wasn't allowed to take his farm equipment, anything. He got booted. It was actually kind of a larger thing in the community he was exposed for, and then he kind of went into a hermitage, and we haven't seen much from him since then. But unfortunately, after 5 days, they dragged our mobile kitchen with a tractor to the side of the road and dumped it on the side of the road like a dead animal. Bent our bar seats and damaged his son, and a few other people had shot guns at our kitchen. There were bullet holes in it. It was. And
they lit it on fire.
And then we found it on the side of the road, and I had a bad feeling about it sitting there. And unfortunately, the tow service on this island, it's what we call island time. So we had called several tow companies. None of them could do it for like a week. That was the earliest tow, and I just had a bad feeling about it. And I received a call the next night that our kitchen was on fire. And so, yes, somebody who was witnessed later on bragging about lighting our kitchen on fire.
Why was he bragging? What's there to brag about?
Bragging that he lit this Howley's kitchen. Howley is referred to as white people, basically. Or in aloha means with breath. And if you can see the reversal of it, haole is the reversal of aloha in reverse. So ha means breath. Yeah. Alo with breath. Haole means breath without breath. Yes. So because when the original colonizing British came here, the first thing the Hawaiian people noticed is that we do something where
the Hawaiians bring their foreheads together and take a deep breath together. So they went. It's how we say hello. It's a way to connect.
The way they say hello is by touching
foreheads together. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and you'll see that traditionally with some of the local, especially brothers that come together. So they went to do that with him, and they were like, "Whoa, what is that?" And they were like, "Oh, without breath, like these people have." So it's a term, a derogatory term, referred to. Unfortunately, there is a strange reverse racism that I've noticed being here 17 years. It's
17 years you've been here.
Yeah. And my children have experienced it in some of the schools here, and it's just something. And I've received much less of it because I do look like, again, I'm going to say a very less than 10% of the people that live here are actually of indigenous Hawaiian genetics. So most of the people here are transplants from the Portuguese to the Japanese to the Filipino to
I've seen a lot of Filipinos.
Koreans. Nobody's really local here, but ironically,
I even heard that some of the people who are considered local, they were being persecuted somewhere, and then they took a ship here, and then they just settled down here. Not the British, the people before the British.
Yeah,
I don't know a lot of the details about
we're
that.
We're all transplants here, so there's a great hypocrisy in even trying to claim that. So
it's God's land, you maintain it. We're all guests on
the true intention and really life code that the Hawaiian people lived by was that land is to be shared like a pie, like everyone.
Unless it's with white folks.
No. I'm saying the indigenous tribal intention was always to share. Nobody owns anything. We all have, the best we have is a right of use, And so
you're talking about today,
in general, but I'm saying the true indigenous. Of the real aloha spirit and of the Hawaiian people is land is not owned, it's shared collectively. So
no one can really say, even if they're a local, this land is mine. According to their
obviously we have a very capitalistic society where that is the case, and there is a lot of corruption even locally here around land ownership and misuse of the DNLR, the Department of the Land and Resources. And a misappropriation of lands, and there's a lot of, sadly, corruption everywhere. So this place is no different. But the overall spirit and the intention of Aloha is a collective sharing. So nonetheless,
is this also where you came with the idea to give people free food?
Yes, the prosperity in a tribe is shared. It's not prosperity that's why it's not a charity bowl. It's a prosperity bowl. So prosperity in a tribe is shared, and that's something that with capitalism, it's like if I can hunt the most and get the most food, then I deserve to have the most. And it's not,
it's going to rot because you also have a limit of how much you can consume. So giving becomes a natural thing. It's not even out of the goodness of your heart. It's just a natural thing to do.
100%.
Otherwise, it's going to rot.
Well, with the development of the monetary system and money can sit. Fiat currency can sit. It's not raw resources that could go bad. So we do want to collectively share. But I came to the fire department, got here pretty early, so they stopped the fire, and I mean, the whole thing was a charred mess, as you'll see in some of the footage that you guys will get to see. But they stopped it, so the bones on this thing were good. But it was a very traumatic and sad thing. I put 2 years of my life into building this beautiful thing that it was very powerful to see something, how much it takes to create something and how little it takes to destroy something. In a matter of, an hour, that 2 years of my life could be taken in a way like that. It's one thing to evict us, but to destroy what we could have then set up somewhere else for the community. So even the individual who did it didn't understand that they weren't taking this away from us, they were taking it away from the community. There were plenty of
others as well.
Local Hawaiian people who are diabetic that were enjoying our desserts and our gluten-free rice for sushi and things like that. So it was a loss for the community. And so I hauled it back and held on to it, and eventually, when the time was right, about 8 months ago, I started the rebuild on it.
So this is new.
This is rebuilt anew, better and more beautiful than it was before, which has been it's been a lot. It's been a labor of love, but it's been profoundly enriching and rewarding to do it a second time and watch
in
it
an even
rise
better
from
location
the
on
ashes.
the road.
and to be more accessible and visible from the road.
Yeah.
And
that's
to
how I
have
found you.
a far larger space and lot for us to be able to set up our gardens and a stage for performance. And we were doing an ecstatic dance on the farm that got really popular.
The same other farm?
Yeah, we had set up a stage.
Because now the guy that was evicting you is no longer there.
Yes. So, and sadly, the dance community continued on after we were evicted and didn't really stand with us through that. They wanted to still use the space. And I think it lasted a few more months before his eviction process and that whole thing played out. But yeah, it was sad to see how much the community didn't stand with us through our hardship. And so I vowed to rebuild it and bring it, you know, to rise from the ashes, and we have, and we're back stronger and more organized and with greater intentions and with the same beautiful menu, but a deeper and more organized intention behind it, and also a deeper infrastructure. We are running off of a digital platform that can be replicated to multiple locations.
Franchise.
Yeah, Toast is the back end that we're using, which is basically like a digitized restaurant.
So that's the name of the platform, Toast?
Yeah. Okay. So everything from our payroll to our analytics for sales, everything is beautifully done. And
so you've built a proper foundation to
launch and expand and build a network of these, which was our intention in the first place.
So what can you tell us about why you would want to expand, and what value do you provide that makes you unique?
Well, the foundational one is that so much food is cooked and has no life in it. And so when you don't cook food, any food, it sustains more life. And since
what do you mean by that?
Well, anytime you cook something over 117 degrees, you kill the enzymatic infrastructure, and your body expects around 80% of the enzymes that you're supposed to be getting to digest something come from the food you're eating. So your body actually expects that you're going to have a more enzymatically enriched diet. And so when you don't have that, your body has to direct all these enzymes from your pancreas to break down the food, which depletes your enzymatic reservoir. When it's cooked.
Like, for example, a steak or a burger or pasta.
Even if you wanted to have a steak or meat, to cook it less is going to give you still more life and more enzymatic infrastructure. When you cook vegetables, they're just as dead. And it's a dead weight.
But don't they have the carbohydrates and the calories in it?
Or well, everything has carbohydrates.
More of an energetic type.
It's kind of a catch-22, because with vegetables, they have a lot of lectins and neurotoxins that are actually better if you cook them out. But when you cook them out, you cook the life out. So how do we dance within that to maintain the enzymes? And that's where Living Foods comes in a beautiful way to be able to maintain more enzymatic infrastructure.
So you don't cook any of the food in your restaurant?
We don't cook it over 117 degrees. So we'll blanch things with hot water. We do a poi curry where we put the vegetables in hot water, which start to break down some of the starches to make them more digestible. And then
when you say hot water, it's not boiling.
It's boiling at first, but by the time the vegetables go in, it's going to be under boiling, and it's going to be and then instantly it drops in temperature, so it flash blanches, but it still maintains the life. So the vegetables will be broken down some, but still be living inside, almost like you would do a rare steak or something like that.
So a very simple way of putting it, it's pretty much like you said, a rare steak, but rare vegetables.
Yes,
and wheat and whatnot, or do you not use any wheat?
No, we have a Yogi rising bowl that has what we call the Fab 5 Yogi grain mix, which is kamut, rye, barley, wheat, red wheat berries, and then whole oats. And then we sprout those, and then again,
what does sprouting mean?
We soak them so that they soak up, and then we all of the water, they activate and become alive. You could take them and put them down in the earth, and they would start growing. And then we strain them, rinse them. So we rinse all the toxins off.
Any pesticides and whatnot?
Anything else, we get everything organic, so we don't have those anyways. But
that by itself is
more the actual neurotoxins and the lectins that naturally grains and vegetables produce to defend themselves, and they do that because they're maintaining the survival of their species. That's why you'll see giraffe only eat one type of a leaf. Koalas eat one type of a leaf, and nature has its own way of regulating what animal eats what thing, and that's because each animal builds an immunity to the lectins and the neurotoxins in each of those vegetables. So a giraffe produces an immunity to the toxins in the leaves that it eats, where a koala does not. And that's how nature regulates everything in nature to be in balance. We're the only species that eats tons of stuff from all over the place.
Yeah.
A lot of those things we don't have an immunity for. Most of those immunities come from our genetics.
Yeah.
If you come from Irish descent, you can probably digest potatoes better than someone who didn't have them introduced in their diet.
Yeah.
57 people die from potato poisoning every year.
I did watch this documentary or piece of research work that was saying how each group of people have a specific diet. If they go out of that diet, they start to experience a lot of discomfort and disease.
Indigestion, compromises, and most of us.
So what's good for me may not be good for you.
And well, that's the whole point, is that each of us has a different biochemical makeup, and so there is no all-around diet that's great for everybody. But what we offer here is enzymatically enriched, probiotic enriched living foods that are done the right way if you're going to do the vegan raw food diet, and can be interfaced with a diet that doesn't just consist of raw food. And we've also found a beautiful and artistic way to replicate a lot of your favorite foods, from burgers to lasagna to
I did
pad
try
thai.
your lasagna. It was very nice.
Nice, thank you. In a way that doesn't just taste like we're trying to replicate it, but it actually tastes very much like the same thing, if not more vibrant and fresh in its flavor. I used to actually chef events where people would ask if I could do cooked foods and raw foods, and the raw foods would always stand out over the cooked food because the flavors were more vibrant, and ultimately there was more life in the food. Yeah.
And I was reading also on one of the papers you have out in the front, you were a celebrity chef. What does that mean?
Yes. Well, it just means that I've chefed for some A-list celebrities and athletes.
In private
and
events,
like
or?
Done some personal chefing for them and at events, and a few of them were connected to the original Mandala Living Foods. Yeah.
What do you mean the original Mandala Living?
The one that we had that burnt down, the one that we had 5 years ago.
But it was still yours. It wasn't someone else's.
No, but they actually were part of the investment process and donated to the launch of our kitchen and what we did. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I remember you also mentioned something about the cashew conspiracy.
Yes, the cashew conspiracy, which was, a defining moment for me in regards to writing my cookbook. And I built a lot of my recipes and my menu off of cashews. I found a very elegant, beautiful way to work with them, to replicate everything from cream cheese to cheesecake. And so when I learned that cashews were actually not a raw nut, that they had to be pasteurized because they're extremely...
Even when they say that they're raw in the supermarket.
Yes, they're not raw.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, cashews are extremely poisonous. They have a neurotoxin in them that replicates what it is to have poison oak. So when you eat them, they cause like a swelling in your throat, and you can actually asphyxiate and die. So
if you eat it 100% raw?
Raw, 100%.
Okay.
Yes.
So what they do is they pasteurize it.
They have to pasteurize.
Yet they still call it raw.
Well, and the raw ones that they refer to as raw have less pasteurization, which means they actually have more neurotoxins in them. If you're going to eat cashews, you actually want to eat the more roasted ones because they're going to have less of that neurotoxin in them.
The defense mechanism that it has on it.
To protect itself, 100%. And so when I realized that this thing that
and this
so
is
many...
how you cook your food here? With either roasted cashews or...
We don't even use cashews.
Oh, you don't use them at all?
We've completely walked away from the cashew conspiracy because if we're actually a Living Foods raw establishment, the only thing we have here that's technically cooked is our rice that we sprout. We do a sprouted rice for 3 to 5 days. We sprout it, it activates it. We still have to cook it. Now we do have wild rice that we sprout and we just blanch in water that's still under 117 degrees. So it softens it and it's still raw. But we also make a sprouted rice that's amazing. And the neat thing is when you sprout your rice, once you finally strain it after 3 days, you throw it in a Tupperware, it goes in your fridge. It takes half the time to cook to normal rice, and it becomes what's called a holistic food, which is a slow burning carbohydrate, as opposed to when you cook rice when it's dry, it's a fast burning carb. It spikes your glycemic
So like when you get
levels.
it right out of the bag and you put it directly into
Right into the water.
That's
a very Chinese cultural thing. The Japanese, almost all Japanese soak their rice. So it's just something that they do. The Chinese are more prone to cooking dried rice and instant rice and making rice like that. So, but when I learned and felt the difference with sprouting my rice and then cooking it and it being a slow burned burning carbohydrate, it's a holistic food, it digested very differently. So that's the only thing we have that we actually cook. And even then, like I said, it's sprouted, and it has a fermented, almost cheesiness to it that's very, very uniquely different. Yeah. So.
All right. So now let's get into something that you've also shown me, which is your book.
Yes.
What can you tell us about the contents of your book and why you had the motivation to write a book?
Well, it's actually been almost a 20-year journey. I started writing it close to 18 years ago. And primarily, I was trained as a traditional chef. So when I became vegan and got into living foods, I noticed most of the chefs became live food or raw foodists and then started to learn how to cook. Where I had trained traditionally in American bistro and Pacific Northwest and French cuisine and then world cuisines, and then became vegan and then a raw foodist. So I brought all of the culinary artistry and skill to approach living foods in a different way, a way of gourmet, an innovative way. But I also learned that through these different raw food chefs that I was able to apprentice with, I learned some very unique techniques, because the things they were working with, whether it be psyllium husk or coconut oil, raw unfiltered coconut oil, or which would act when cold as a binding agent, kind of like raw butter or butter would if you're making desserts or whipped creams or things like that. I saw a lot of adaptive aspects that were very fun that were new to me, that I had to adapt my traditional training in how to, work with dairy and things like that. That became a very fun explorative challenge for me. And the innovation of that was, over 200 recipes that I recreated a lot of the things that I trained on a traditional level, and I feel evolved in a way to a cleaner palate, a cleaner constitute, a cleaner substance, to where I was fascinated after a while with creating some of my favorite things, whether it be nacho cheese or cheesecake, in a more digestible format that would taste almost exactly the same. Was my focus, eventually my obsession, because I myself am lactose intolerant. That was my biggest thing I took away from being vegan for almost 10 years, was that the pasteurized mucus of an animal is undigestible to us, not just the fat globule size, which is greater than ours.
But what do you think of raw milk?
Raw milk.
Unpasteurized.
Well, I mean, I've experimented with raw milk as someone who's lactose intolerant, and I have no digestive issues with it. In fact, there's some amazing science and research that not only does it regenerate the stomach lining, it's actually been proven to regenerate brain tissue in the brain.
It does have a lot of health benefits.
Which is
That's
ironically,
a whole topic by itself, which is
ironic that it's illegal in 48 states. But I saw that milk, pasteurized milk, and dairy was a deadly poison. That's how what many of my teachers referred to it. My yogic teacher, who was a biochemical nutritionist, referred to it as a deadly poison.
The one that you were apprenticing with?
Yes. Yeah. And so I began my journey to recreate things like ice cream and nacho cheese.
So do you have ice cream here in this restaurant?
We do have it. We don't have it right now, but we do offer ice cream on our menu. Yeah.
Okay, and you said something very unique about the yogurt that you have. What makes it?
Yes, and that was another thing that came about for me as a neuromuscular specialist. I had patients, a lot of my patients are immunologically compromised, and a lot of our issue, and again, one of our big mission statements for this place is, because of the enzymatic depletion from all of us eating very processed and cooked foods, your average microbiome is very depleted and compromised on your average human being.
So this food here helps regenerate that.
It does. It supports the microbiome to recultivate. And so through the process, I grew and cultivated a super probiotic yogurt that was made from coconut cream instead of dairy, that has over 60 lactobacillus strains in it. So most yogurts have maybe 6 lactobacillus strains. Our yogurt has it realistically has over 75, but I'll just say conservatively, there's over 60 lactobacillus strains working in harmony with each other.
What does that mean? Why is that significant?
Well, when you get a yogurt and they tell you that there's 9 billion cultures in it, those 9 billion cultures, there's roughly going to be about 1 billion per cultural strain. So Let's say
Can you say that
have
in more simple terms for the average viewer?
sure,
even including me.
Like a lactobacillus strain is a specific type of lactobacillus.
Okay.
So there are a multitude of forms of lactobacillus.
And how does that affect the human?
And probiotics.
Okay.
So each one of those probiotic strains is its own living organism, its own living culture.
Has its own benefits to your body.
Has its own benefits, has its own benefit that it does to your body, that it might focus on, that it might help with. So when you have 6 different probiotic strains in a yogurt, you might have 6 billion cultures, but it's going to be 6 different families.
Okay.
So our yogurt has over 60 families in it.
Okay.
So that would be
so it's far more
10
nutritious.
times what you would see an average yogurt would have, which is why you call it a super probiotic. Now, most super probiotics that you get in capsule
Is that similar
form,
to kombucha? Because kombucha is mainly
well, kombucha has its
having...
own singular strain that it usually works within.
Oh, so kombucha only has one.
Yes, that's going to
So
be
it's
the
much
primary.
less than the regular yogurt. And
Sometimes it has 2, maybe. Our kombucha, we've got the bacteria from Jun and kombucha to form together and work in harmony.
So you make your own
generally,
kombucha as well?
We do. We brew our own kombucha here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does that process go? What makes it stand out?
Well, I'll jump to that as we finish the lactobacillus probiotic lesson, because I want to stay.
Yeah.
Since you asked me to kind of explain how it works, so each of these lactobacillus strains, these families, will work together. So when you get a super probiotic yogurt, let's say that has maybe 50 probiotics in a capsule, those 50 probiotics are actually they're frozen. They're sleeping.
Okay.
They're hibernating.
Okay.
And so they'll combine them all and capsulize them for you, which means when you take it, your body has to wake up each one of them.
That's how you take the supplements.
And these are your average super probiotic supplement. Because someone will be like, oh, I take a probiotic supplement that has 50 different probiotics in it. Well, that's great. But just so you know, each one of those 50 are not living and breathing and working together in harmony.
You didn't directly get the benefit.
They're all jigsaw puzzled together. They're all put together in a capsule that then you take, and then they wake up inside of you, and hopefully they start working together.
Okay.
Our super probiotic has grown and cultivated in harmony. So it eats and reproduces together, and it grows together.
And when you digest it,
it works. You have all 60 working together like a massive civilization. It's helped patients do everything from repair guttural tears to help completely repollinate the microbiome of one's digestive tract and gut. So we use no open air fermentation for our yogurt, which is unheard of. Most yogurts you have to do open air fermentation. We literally jar it and put it in the fridge. Within 3 to 5 days, it blows the lid off. So it is the most powerful probiotic yogurt that I know of on the planet. And at a certain point, it got so good as a product, I knew that we had to build a company around it. So we're building the first processing facility here on Kauai, and it's called The Cloud Coconut Creamery. That's the name of our yogurt, is The Cloud. And Mandala Living Foods is the exclusive facilitator or vendor for The Cloud until it fully launches, and then it has its own national brand that is in the process of being built.
Can people soon enough find this yogurt in the grocery stores?
That's our goal. Our goal is to be able to build a national brand and process upwards of 1,000 pounds of coconut here on our islands.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the untapped resources here. Over 100,000 coconuts go to waste on this island every month.
To waste?
Just waste, unused.
So you can definitely
even most of the coconut farmers here, they will farm and harvest the water, but they don't use the meats. So we use the meats, and there are over 13 different species of coconuts here. Many of them are very androgynous. So our yogurt tastes like a rich Amish farmhouse yogurt, completely tastes like dairy. Our super probiotic strain consists of a multitude of different probiotic yogurt strains, including the same lactobacillus that's in raw dairy. We actually were able to isolate that lactobacillus bacteria and bring it into our completely vegan coconut strain.
So regularly, how many families of cultures, if my wording is correct, about raw milk. How many families would it have in raw milk?
Well, raw milk is still going to have only a certain genre of cultures, but it has a higher concentration than any pasteurized dairy that would then have probiotics added back into it. It is one of the stronger probiotics that you could have.
Yeah, but the
yogurt, be in raw
from
dairy.
from what I understand, technically the yogurt is the most potent superfood regarding that topic.
You'd think so, but when you pasteurize yogurt, you kill all of the
I'm talking about
bacteria.
your yogurt.
Oh, yes, 100%. Yes, is over dairy yogurts. Yes. In fact, a lot of our culture specialists that have examined and say it is the most powerful yogurt they've seen on the planet. Yeah.
Interesting.
And the numbers reflect that. Like I said,
What numbers?
Most yogurts, including even the coconut yogurt companies that have come out, have around 6 strains, families of lactobacillus. We have over 60 in ours. So as I said, 10 times the number of families. So that would mean where their yogurts have around 6 billion, ours has over 60 billion.
It's definitely a huge difference.
Huge difference, and you feel it. When you take it, you can feel it actually working within your gut and clearing chambers of gas in the stomach. It's one of the most powerful things about it is when you take it, you feel it working in you.
Do you cleanse after that? Your body releases all
I mean, I could describe it like after you have it, maybe even an hour after, and I'm talking, we recommend people start with a spoonful. You will be walking and think you might have to run to the bathroom and poop your pants right away. And then a minute later, it goes away. Because
without
it was
pooping it.
Without, you'll think, oh my gosh, I'm gonna poop my pants, and then it moves, and you're like, oh, I'm fine. And it took me a while to understand this, taking it myself, that it was just clearing gas chambers, trapped gas that's in your intestinal tract. It's clearing and pushing it through. So we actually have a more advanced program that we're going to be implementing, and we offer it here at Mandala, called a lunar repollination cycle. You see, bacteria reproduces on a lunar cycle. So
what does that mean?
It means that tied to the moon, bacteria reproduces off of a cycle of the moon.
Within your body, you mean?
Within your body, within nature, within everything.
Okay.
So, which would make sense. The magnetics of the moon starts and then peaks at the full moon, which is the peak of the reproduction cycle. So we have you start.
I know its connection with water, but I didn't know about bacteria.
Yeah, of course, with all living things. So we have you start taking the yogurt on the new moon, and then you take it through the full month and peak in the full moon, and it repollinates your microbiome of your gut. It's the most effective way to do it.
And does this book have any information about how to make that yogurt, or what are the contents?
It has everything.
Why would someone buy this book?
This book is actually 5 books in one. It is a herb and spice guide. So all of the herbs and spices.
Oh, the benefits of it and characteristics.
Not just the medicinal qualities, but also the flavor characteristics, which I've never really seen before in an herb and spice guide.
It does look detailed.
Yes, so it lists the medicinal qualities of, let's say, a bay leaf, and then it also gives the culinary applications and the flavor profiles.
Integrated with other plants.
Exactly, and then it's a superfood dictionary as well, and then it's also a tonic alchemy manual showing you how to brew your own kombucha, how to make tinctures,
step by step.
How to make tea bases, how to make essences and hydrosols. And then it goes into our cashew conspiracy, where I address it in the book, along with the basics, instructional methodology for sprouting, how to sprout things.
Nice. You also have timing,
timing for how to sprout things.
Nice. So it's a very detailed book.
And then also breaking down everything from the meditation of preparation to the geometry of proteins. So how proteins work, it gives you a spectrum on proteins and their comparison, whether it be animal proteins to legumes or nuts. And then on top of that, then it also has a full chapter on how to replicate dairy, smoothies.
What do you mean replicate dairy?
How to replicate your favorite
cheese?
Exactly. There's a whole chapter just on dairy, on how to replicate milks, how to make your own cheeses, and how to make cream cheeses, how to make frostings. And then after that, it's everything from over 200 recipes of sauces, spreads, And then of course things like how to make your own burger buns, pizza crusts, how to make your own taco shells, how to replicate really everything from granola to apple pie crusts.
So you can basically open your own restaurant with this.
100%. It is everything from coconut bacon, and then of course it is its own gourmet cookbook as well. How to make all of the recipes that I have over 20 years of recipes are concentrated into this book right here that I wanted to make as everything that other living food books weren't for me as a chef. I would find missing elements, not enough pictures, not enough instruction, sometimes inaccurate recipe measurements.
So you basically filled the gap that you saw you wanted.
I that was the only reason I would even make this. I would make something that every other book wasn't for me, and to fill that gap for those looking to explore living food technology and plant-based nutrition to incorporate into their diet.
Because you were also saying, based on the other practices that you do, like the NeuroMuscular Therapy, how your body is an instrument.
It is.
And you get to learn how to use the technology through understanding the user's manual.
100%. And also most even spiritual practices in the yogic sciences, I noticed, do not include the food. That was one of the big things. You'll see them do these yoga poses and all these beautiful practices and breath work, but then they'll be eating this overcooked, extra oily foods,
which hinders the progress.
It's harder to digest. Yeah, it's not. And so in fact, most of the Indian food is very based off of very overcooked sauces, overcooked
modern
vegetables.
Indian food,
yes,
but not classic.
No, even older Indian food is very, it's based off, things that are cooked for a very long period of time with excess oils and beautiful spices, but overcooked foods. And so that was one of the things that my yogic practitioner teacher was very much about, that he was always identifying, is look at these unhealthy yogis. They have these big old guts. They're unhealthy.
I do notice they have this beer belly.
And my yogi looked like he was 30 years old, and after training with him for a few years, roughly tossed out he would be turning 60 next month, and so he had a full six-pack, and the skin on his face was toned and taut. And
was he a vegan or vegetarian?
He was a vegan raw foodist. Yeah,
he went from vegan, anemic or anything like that.
I mean, that's the thing, is most vegans are anemic because they don't know how to supplement properly. So that's also why I wrote this book, because if you are going to choose a vegan plant-based diet, you have to do it properly. You have to
do you promote veganism, or what do you subscribe to, first of all?
I promote, as I said before, experimenting and eating off your biochemistry and what works for you.
How can you understand your biochemistry?
Experimentation, which takes a lot more effort than just listening to somebody like me to tell you should do this or you should do that. Yeah.
Because I also noticed something very clarifying for a lot of people, in the sense that you said your healing doesn't happen in the session with me. It happens after you leave the session.
Yes.
All you do is give them the technique.
That's right. Well, we activate the inner healer within them to fix them, because no one's ever going to fix you.
Yeah. It's the higher power.
In fact, even in Western medicine, even if they set your bone that's broken, they still rely on your own body to heal that bone fracture. So even in Western medicine, they do still have a very limited understanding that the body does heal itself. They don't regard the intelligence level of what we call the inner physician or the inner intelligence within the body. And they feel that they have to play a larger manipulative role in assisting the body to heal itself, where your body is like a supercomputer. It's doing thousands of things to keep you alive right now while you're focusing on just me talking. So as far as I consider it, the body is a far more intelligent vessel than the mind is. The mind thinks it's really smart. The body is, again, doing thousands of things to keep you alive while you and I are having a single pointed, focused conversation. So
everything's being taken care of in the background.
100% to provide us this conscious experience. So if we can tap into that innate intelligence within the body, it already has a full diagnostic for everything that's wrong with you. And it would normally have a more present diagnostic that it was working on, but because, as we've talked about, the body doesn't get touched enough, it eats foods that are compromising to where the body has to now take more energy and directive to digest the dead food we're eating rather than have an easier digestion process so it could focus on higher functioning tasks. It starts to have to prioritize diagnostic functionality and start skipping some of the other tasks that are still very important. It just has to prioritize towards parasympathetic or sympathetic instead of parasympathetic, which is survival mode, rather than a deeper relaxation mode where the parasympathetic gets to kick in, and that's where our higher functioning. That's why they say the greatest healing you have is when you're in deep sleep. That's another whole issue is people don't actually, they're so wired to sympathetic, they don't get in parasympathetic, so they never get into deep sleep. Most of us are restless throughout our sleep. We never hit that theta.
Especially when you eat right before sleeping because you're still in digestion mode.
So or we don't do what I was talking about, which is just maybe even touch and relax the tissue and calm ourselves to go into that, or go into some type of exercise breath work to relax the mind and the body and the nervous system. We sleep very restlessly. And so that's why you could sleep 8 to 10 hours and not feel rested, is because you never hit that deeper parasympathetic, because that's how hardwired we are to survival mode in our society, in this world today.
And it's much more of a holistic manner where just food alone won't solve this, nor would massage alone solve this. It has to be a grouping of all those holistic practices. So if someone's watching this and thinks that if they come and eat this food, all their problems are going to be solved, you may solve 1 or 2 problems, but you have to have an entire environment that does contribute to your healing.
You definitely, if this is a temple, most of our temples are kind of beat up, broken down. So if we activate the nerves, we release a lot of the trauma and stroma in the body and the stress, and we reset the nervous system, and it starts running an analysis and wants to fix stuff. Well, we've uploaded new architectural plans for the inner physician to work on, but if it only has straw and hay and some twigs and mud, what kind of a temple can it build? If we give it some steel and glass and granite and marble, then it could really rebuild. And that's why there are, we have different nutraceuticals and supplements that we give my patients after they reset their nervous system. We call one of them the Fab Five, which is lysine, proline, glucosamine sulfate, MSM, and silica, which are the 5 building blocks we don't normally get in our food. And if you take those 5 supplements, try taking them for a week. You'll never stop taking them. You start feeling amazing because you're all of a sudden giving your body more building blocks. The body wishes it could get it from the food, and you can get it from the food. But at this point in our industrialized agriculture and farming, so much of our soil is very depleted. You do need to take supplements to some degree, but your body, you can't just live off of supplements. You need to also be eating healthy living foods and building a relationship with your own sovereignty of building foods and making your own food and making and putting your vibration and your love into your food, which is where this book to me is a life manual. It represents an ability to have sovereignty. And unfortunately, too often we even get codependent in our society going to Erewhon or going to Whole Foods and oh, sure, you could get some higher quality food and you just pick your proteins and your sides, and so many people are used to that, but somebody else still made your food. You didn't put your own energy and vibration into that. And there's a beautiful thing with doing that. There's a sovereignty and an empowerment that I want to support, especially the younger millennial generations, to get more engaged and involved in.
And where can people find this book if they want to buy it?
Livingfoodscookbook.com is the website we've set up. You can also get it on Amazon, but it's a lot cheaper to go to livingfoodscookbook.com to get it.
Can they come buy it here from you? Get a
They can. Version? We are going to have stock books here at our cafe. And of course, as we launch a franchise of these cafes, and we're looking to open one in Venice, California, which I'm really excited about, like a big brick and mortar, we will have the books there. And we're looking to get them in Whole Foods and Erewhon and some of the health food stores. But you can get access to it right away at livingfoodscookbook.com. And there is both a digital copy, and this is just a paperback, which I'm not even printing anymore. I'm just doing the hardcover. So the hardcover and the digital copy, I think there's a...
so when you buy it, you automatically also get the digital version?
You can buy the digital if you want to, or you can get the hard copy, or you can get both. There's a package that we have for both, which I recommend getting both, because the digital you can take with you on your iPad when you travel, and then you keep the hard copy in your kitchen at home, safe, and where it can be that you can explore it in your kitchen.
Or even as a gift to someone.
Or as a gift to somebody as well. But the digital has its own value to me that's magical. And obviously, there's a beautiful thing, a tangible thing with having a real book that you can look through, that you can mark pages on. And
which is also well designed. It's comfortable to the eye, and it's well structured.
And that's what we worked really hard on. Like, there's over 200 full color pictures, beautiful art in this book. And it's very big. It's 8.5 by 11. We wanted to make it larger and more accessible and inviting to be able to, explore and scroll through and make it visually beautiful. Thus, it is the art and science of living foods. So that was our goal, was really showing you the art and the science of living foods and making something visually stimulating that would feel inviting for you to explore and experiment with.
Micah Skye, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Truly.
Unfolding all this information. And I look forward to having another in-depth conversation with you about different topics, because
I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
Indeed, because
so much to it.
In the beginning, I just thought you were an interesting chef with interesting information about food, but turns out you're you cover a larger bandwidth of information that also reflects in the type of food that you prepare and the information that you share about that food.
And that's again going back to the holistic side of like, it's not just one thing that's going to heal you. It's a collective, it's a collective endeavor. Just like it took many different elements to make us sick and unhealthy, whether it's the radionics fields or the pesticides or the pharmacological, poisoning, the water, like it took a lot of elements at one time to compromise us. And so equally, it takes a lot to heal and to bring us back to our healthy moments.
Just like you said about the kitchen burning down, you can take 2 years building something very meaningful and rich with substance, and then in 1 hour you can destroy the whole thing.
It's so true. And so we want to have a fun, engaging process to return to our healing, and that's what I'm all about, They say that it takes over 500 times of repetition to fully log something into long-term memory. It takes less than 10 times if you're in the psychology of playfulness. So, to be in that mentality of playfulness, things will integrate and will absorb deeper into our consciousness.
Micah Skye, absolute pleasure.
Truly.
Look forward to more.
Yeah, so do I. Thank you for taking the time to explore this.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm sure a lot of people will benefit a lot from this information.
Thank you all for tuning in. Truly. Appreciate it.
We'll see you again in another episode.